today. We're streaming today. I hope you're doing fine. There's so many streams for us to see, but this one here is mine. I'm glad that you're here. I hope that you're well. Now join me as we watch the world go to hell, and we're streaming. We're streaming. We're streaming today. I didn't like the ending of that one, but you can't win them all. You can't win them all. How you guys doing today? I am still unbelievably in recovery. Yesterday, I actually had to end the stream early yesterday because I was feeling so badly, and I think I finally put two and two together. I think I finally figured out what the heck was going on. I just think this last week has been so busy for me. Like, I feel like I've always had something to do and always doing something and getting out of the house and running around. And I really started to think, like, have I actually even been eating enough? And like I sat down and I actually like started plotting it out. I'm like, no, absolutely not. No, I have not been eating enough. Absolutely. It reminds me of when like a couple of years back now. Hey, pissed off Canadian, how you doing today, bud? Good to see you. Good to see you. It reminds me a couple of years back I went through like a real workout period where I was like, yeah, I'm working out every single day, and then like I did that for about a week, and I started to feel like really depleted and really down and really like, ooh. And so I started to do some investigation and end up on like a caloric intake site. And I did all the steps and all this kind of stuff. And they said, like, usually I eat about 2,000 calories a day. And they said, yeah, dude, for what you're doing, you should be eating 3,000 calories a day. So literally I needed to increase my food intake by a third. I needed 30% more food needed to go into my body. And when I started to do it, I felt so guilty. I felt so bad. Like, it's so much more food. And I find that I fall into that pretty commonly, that I don't eat that much. And I try to, I don't know, it just feels like when I actually eat as much as I'm supposed to eat to maintain the level of energy that I'm at, especially if I'm like working out or something, I just feel so guilty. I feel so bad. I feel like I'm eating so much food. But, you know, I end up feeling a whole lot better. And so today I ate a whole lot of food. And I do. I genuinely feel a whole lot better. So I just think I have not been eating enough food and have really been putting my my personal health on the wayside, focusing more on my like mental health and focusing on that. But don't forget that you actually need to eat food too. Eating food. It's important. So let's start today. I haven't really been paying attention to the Olympic Games. I got to be honest with you. I find the Olympic Games to be like, from a political standpoint, I'm glad that they exist, because it's good that all of the nations of the world are coming together and having this like competition moment. Pissed off Canadian, I smoke instead of eat. Yeah, I don't know if that counts, dude. Like, I don't know if that counts. I like focusing on the Olympics because it is like a political moment. It's a moment where all of us come together and you know, the countries of the world that are involved in the Olympics are, you know, at least theoretically not at war with one another. So there's this kind of nice idea that if you're having the Olympics and, you know, China and the United States are there at the Olympics together, then, you know, they're probably not bombing each other, or one kind of hopes. And also it's a great place to get like political catharsis and to point out some interesting trends. So for example, like here we see China has actually leapt up. Just yesterday they were tied with Japan for gold medals. and now they've leapt right up to number one. They don't have the most overall medals. That goes to the United States by one medal at 41. But China sitting at 19 gold medals, 2 above Japan, which really cool to see Japan. I did not expect to see Japan up at, in the top 3, honestly. It shows what I know, I guess. And Japan sitting at 17, and then the United States. And of course, you just know that like the far right in America is just seething and losing their mind about this. That China's number one in the Olympics. I bet they're just like over there just stewing. I mean, we know they are. Some of the headlines, I was showing some of the headlines yesterday about what they're coming out, and they're really like pretending like China, like they're what are they calling it? They're calling it like the Olympic assembly line and like all this kind of stuff, and really trying to shit on the way that China is going about. But really, the way that China is going about getting Olympic athletes is not different than the way the rest of the world does it. And really, it makes a kind of sense that China would be number one, because China has like 1.6 billion people. Like they've got such a huge amount of people to pick from. And if you're going around and you have like a state-run enterprise whose entire job is to go around and find excellent athletes and then train those athletes in order to become Olympians, yeah, like it makes complete sense that China would be number one at this. They have such a, like, especially when you compare them to something like the United States. Like the United States sitting with like 350 million people, right? So they've got like literally like a fifth of the population that China has. Just like those numbers alone, right? Those numbers alone, like is, and I'm sure that there are a lot of other factors that go into it, but you know, population counts. Like if you've got that much more population, yeah, you're going to have more opportunity to find really excellent people who are astute and built for this task. And it is only a matter of time until China spits out their own kind of Michael Phelps, right? Like Michael Phelps is like, you know, a once in a generation kind of a person who just like shows up and takes over the Olympics. And I think Michael Phelps, is it 7 or 8? I can't remember, but he holds the record for most amount of medals won. And someone like that is 100% going to come out of China eventually, where they just like, they are a specimen. They are just a human dynamo at what it is they do. And when that happens, then the United States is going to get really mad. Then they're going to get really, really mad. But until such time, hey Dan, how you doing, bud? Good to see you. So this is an interesting thing. As you can see, I got a million tabs here, so we're gonna go through these. So Sam Cedar keeps picking fights, and this is a quick like 40 seconds. So.
He's afraid of me, and he knows he's listening to my voice right now. Not exactly in this moment. After it goes out, I know he's listening to this.
Yeah.
Know it. Jimmy, you're a coward. You know it. I know it. Everybody else knows it. You want to be a tough guy, come be a tough guy. Come on the show. I'll invite you into the studio.
It's weird how he'll respond to me. He'll respond to Anna. He'll respond to Jamie when Jamie was working here. He won't respond to Matt. He won't respond to you. What is the through line that we're seeing here, huh?
So, I actually rather like what Sam Cedar is doing. Like, I think that Sam Cedar, first of all, Dan, going camping, you lucky ducky. Where are you off to, bud? Where are you going? Let's, I'm going to straight up Google it. Let's get the Google Maps. Google Maps. Google Maps. Let's find out where Dan's going camping. I like what Sam Cedar's doing picking these fights. I mean, there is like a hard-nosed just business aspect to it where he knows that picking these fights is good for his business, because it means that if he gets you know, a new viewer base, right? That's a really great idea. It's a good idea to like, so somebody like Jimmy Dore, who has a larger viewer base than he does, right? So he's picking a fight, hoping that Jimmy Dore will actually bite and they'll actually have a thing, and then maybe he can get some of his viewership. And ultimately, Sam Cedar's ultimate goal does have to be to get on Joe Rogan's podcast. That if you are in like this Joe Rogan sort of the Joe Rogosphere, I don't know what else to call it, but Joe Rogan is definitely the apex, right? Like he's definitely at the top, and whoever goes on his podcast, they are going to experience a blow up of viewership. And more importantly, they are going to be part of the larger national discussion. They simply are. And so someone like Sam Cedar has got to be thinking, like, how do I get up to that kind of echelon? And there are ways to do that. And one of the ways is to pick fights with people like Jimmy Dore. And Jimmy Dore goes on Joe Rogan's podcast, right? So you're trying to pick these fights and you're trying to build your own kind of thing. And also I think Sam Cedar is intelligent. I think his positions are normal, like, and rational. I don't think that he's a goof. And because he's doing this, it really gives people an opportunity to see who the frauds are, right? Like someone like Crowder is a fraud, right? Like someone like Steven Crowder is like a complete fraud. And how he acted when Sam Cedar and him ended up kind of face to face, like, I mean, even people in Steven Crowder's own base are saying, like, just debate this guy. Like, what's the holdup? But the reality is that Steven Crowder can't debate Sam Cedar because Sam Cedar's not, a first-year college kid. Sam Cedar knows what he's talking about. And yeah, of course he's a tool. Like, of course he is. They're all fucking tools, dude. You kind of have to be a bit of a tool to do this. Like, don't get me wrong. I'm not like the biggest Sam Cedar fanboy. Don't get me wrong. Like. I'll use a Jimmy Dore clip in order to like be like, hey, here's some news that's coming out of Jimmy Dore. Like, and I think Jimmy Dore does good work. I don't do that with Sam Cedar. I really like Sam Cedar doesn't break news. Sam Cedar's not really like, he seems to be more a like pulse of the nation kind of show. Kind of just like he's a talk radio guy. That's I think the better way to think about it. Like Jimmy Dore is actually doing news and actually reporting, whereas Sam Cedar is just like he'll have like somebody will phone in, and then there'll be like a phone conversation that happens, and so there's a difference that exists there. But that said, I do think that Sam has his feet planted on the ground and lives in reality, whereas someone like Steven Crowder exactly. And so I'm glad to see that he's trying to pick fights. I'm glad that if only to kind of show like who is and is not actually doing this honestly, right? We'll see where it manifests. I mean, so Dana, you're saying, did you see the debate Jimmy and Sam did 4 years ago? I don't see Joe ever having Sam on, but hope more people debate him. He is very good. Yeah. And honestly, like Jimmy Dore should debate Sam. I don't really know what they would debate about. That was my thing with the clip. Like, what would the debate even be about? Because I actually see Jimmy Dore and Sam seeing eye to eye on most things except the squad. And that's perhaps what they could actually have a debate about. That, like, Jimmy Dore is very scorched earth with the squad, whereas I think Sam Cedar sees the squad as a growing, burgeoning movement that needs time to grow. So, and we'll see. I tend to lean more towards Dore on that issue. I do think that the power structure protects itself and eliminates people who want to reform it. So, and that includes the squad. So let's pause a moment here, just to talk. You're going to Jasper, eh, Dan? Jasper, have I been? I've never been to Jasper. I've been to Banff, though. Banff is just right down here, so not very far away. I bet you I've gone over to Jasper. Beautiful area. Beautiful, beautiful mountainous area. I was actually going to talk just about that coming up here. I have that buried up over here. There's actually a document that I'm going to be reading that I think covers what you're saying here, Onward. Well, Onward, you're writing a poem here. So Onward says, so we have a leaked CDC document that shows Delta spreads from fully vaccinated people at the same rate as unvaccinated people. So vaccines reduce severity of illness, but if vaccinated people are still getting infected and carrying plenty of virus in the process, won't more variants also come out of vaccinated people? We could vaccinate everyone on Earth and still have variants, and they'll eventually escape vaccination effectiveness altogether. Well, this is what this fellow here is saying. Mehdi Hassan, having half the population vaccinated and half unvaccinated and unprotected, that is the exact experiment I would design if I were a devil and trying to design a vaccine-busting virus. Upon first inspection, the mutations in the highly contagious Delta COVID variant don't look that worrisome. For starters, Delta has fewer genetic changes than earlier versions of the coronavirus. When people saw that the epidemic in India was driven by Delta, they did not suspect it would be so bad or overtake other variants, said Trevor Bedford, an evolutionary biologist at the Fred Hutchinson Cancer Research Center. But those expectations were wrong. Delta has kept some of the most successful mutations found in earlier variants, but also contains new genetic changes that enable it to spread twice as fast. Delta is more dangerous in many ways. It has an incubation period of 4 days rather than 6, making people contagious sooner. When the pandemic began, people spread the original coronavirus to an average of 2 or 3 people. Today, people infected with Delta infect 6 people on average. As of this week, the Delta variant had caused at least 92% of the new infections in the United States, according to covariants.org, a research firm in Bern, Switzerland. Although Delta isn't necessarily any more lethal than other variants, it can kill huge numbers of people simply because it infects so many more, said Dr. Aaron Topol, founder and director of the Scripps Research Translational Institute. Scientists have sequenced Delta's mutations but are trying to understand their significance, said Angela Rasmussen, a virologist at the University of Saskatchewan's Vaccine and Infectious Disease Organization. When we see the same mutations appearing repeatedly and independently, that suggests they're important, Rasmussen said. Scientists have the best understanding of the mutations on the so-called spike protein, which sticks out from the surface of the virus like a club, and which have been studied the most intensely because of its serious ramifications, Rasmussen said. The coronavirus uses the spike protein to enter human cells, and changes in the spike can help the virus evade antibodies. Scientists believe one of the most important areas of the spike is the receptor binding domain, the specific part of the protein that allows the virus to latch onto a receptor on the surface of our cells, said Vaughn Cooper, a professor of microbiology and molecular genetics at the University of Pittsburgh. Receptors are like sockets or docking stations that allow proteins to interact with the cell. Once the virus gains entry to the cell, it can cause havoc, hijacking the cell's genetic machinery and turning it into a virus-making factory. Delta's worrisome mix. Delta's rapid spread is particularly surprising given it lacks 2 mutations that made earlier variants so scary. Delta doesn't have the N501Y spike mutation found in the alpha, beta, and gamma variants, which enabled them to evade cells more successfully than the original virus. That mutation changed one amino acid, a building block of proteins, in the receptor binding domain. Delta also lacks the E484K mutation, which has made the gamma variant so worrisome. This genetic change, sometimes called EEK, allows the virus to spread even amongst vaccinated people. Scientists use the Greek alphabet to name variants of concern. The D in Delta stands for different and a detour to a different genomic mutation path, Topol said. But it doesn't mean doom, he said, noting that existing COVID vaccines remain mostly effective against the Delta variant. Vaccines protect people from COVID by providing them with antibodies that attach themselves to the spike protein, preventing the virus from entering cells. By dramatically reducing the number of viruses that enter cells, vaccines can prevent people from developing severe disease and make them less infectious to others. Delta does share mutations with other successful variants. Like all the identified variants in circulation, Delta contains a spike mutation called D614G, sometimes known as DUG, which became ubiquitous last year. Scientists think DUG increases the density of spike protein on the surface of viral particles and makes it easier for the virus to enter cells. Delta also has a spike mutation called P681R, which closely resembles a mutation in the alpha variant that appears to produce higher viral loads in patients, Cooper said. People infected with Delta have 1,000 times more virus in their respiratory tract, making them more likely to spread the virus when they sneeze, cough, or talk. The P681R mutation, also found in the Kappa variant, is located at the beginning of a part of the genome called the furin cleavage site, Cooper said. Furin is a naturally occurring human enzyme that gets hijacked by the coronavirus, which uses it to slice the spike protein into the optimal shape for entering the cell, Rasmussen said. The new mutation makes that sculpting more efficient, Rasmussen said. Another delta mutation, also found in kappa and epsilon, is called L452R. Experiments suggest this mutation, which also affects the receptor binding domain, acts to prevent antibodies from neutralizing the virus, Cooper said. These mutations appear to be more formidable as a team than alone. The genetic changes are certainly doing something, but why that combination makes the Delta variant more fit is not entirely obvious, Bedford said. Putting them together seems to matter. Delta has also developed genetic changes not seen in other variants. One such spike mutation is called D950N. This might be unique, Cooper said. We don't see that anywhere else. The D950N mutation is different than other mutations because it's located outside the receptor binding domain, in an area of the coronavirus genome that helps the virus fuse with human cells, Cooper said. Fusing with human cells allows the coronavirus to dump its genetic material into those cells. This mutation could affect which type of cells the virus infects, potentially allowing it to harm different organs and tissues. Mutations in this region are also associated with higher viral loads, Cooper said. Delta also contains mutations in a part of the spike protein called the N-terminal domain, which provides a supersite for antibodies to latch onto the virus and prevent it from entering cells, said Dr. Hannah Askelrod, an infectious disease specialist at the George Washington University School of Medicine and Health Sciences. Mutations in this region make monoclonal antibodies less effective in treating COVID and increases the Delta variant's ability to escape vaccine-generated antibodies, Axelrod said. That may explain why vaccinated people are slightly more likely to become infected with Delta, causing mostly mild illness, but allowing them to transmit the virus. Delta's future course. Scientists say it's impossible to predict exactly how Delta will behave in the future, although Topol said it's going to get worse. Topol noted that Delta outbreaks tend to last 10 to 12 weeks as the virus burns through susceptible populations. If the United States continues to follow a pattern seen in the United Kingdom and the Netherlands, infections could rise from the current 7-day moving average of 42,000 cases to 250,000 a day. Yet Topol said the United States is unlikely to suffer the high death rates seen in India, Tunisia, and Indonesia, because nearly half the population here is fully vaccinated. While some studies have concluded that the Johnson & Johnson vaccine stimulates strong and persistent antibodies against Delta, a new report found that antibodies elicited by one shot may not be enough to neutralize Delta. Authors of that study from the New York University Grossman School of Medicine suggested a second dose may be needed. 2 doses of the Pfizer-BioNTech vaccine protect 94% of people from any symptomatic infection by the Alpha variant, compared with 88% against the Delta variant, according to a new study in the New England Journal of Medicine. 2 doses of the AstraZeneca vaccine protect 75% of people from Alpha and 67% from Delta. Cooper said COVID vaccines offer remarkably good protection. I will always celebrate these vaccines as the scientific achievements of my lifetime, he said. The best way to slow down the evolution of variants is to share vaccines with the world. Vaccinating as many people as possible, Bedford said, because viruses undergo genetic changes only when they spread from one host to another. Stopping transmission denies them the chance to mutate. Whether the coronavirus evolves more deadly variants is totally in our hands, Cooper says. If the number of infections remains high, it's going to continue to evolve. By failing to contain the virus through vaccination, wearing masks, and avoiding crowds, people are allowing the coronavirus to morph into increasingly dangerous forms, said Dr. William Hasselton, a former Harvard Medical School professor who helped design treatments for HIV and AIDS. It's getting better. We're making it better, he said. Having half the population vaccinated and half unvaccinated and unprotected, that is the exact experiment I would design if I were a devil and trying to design a vaccine-busting virus. Here's the source. I'll put it in the chat just so that you guys can have it if you'd like it. So kind of a mixture there of hopeful and kind of up and down and all around, right? Robin, hi Robin, good to see you. This is typical anime villain power creep, to be honest. It does have that kind of sense about it, doesn't it? Yeah, only half of the Israeli public said they would be willing to get a third shot. There does come a point where it's time, like you guys know me, I have many opinions on restructuring the economy into a war economy and all of that. And there is going to come a point where we are going to stop saying, like, we're no longer in baby town here. Like, we're no longer in baby time. Like, it's time to say that these shots need to be mandatory. It's time to stop treating babies, or it's time to start treating the babies like they're babies. And just like they can cry and moan and whinge and whine and complain and all of that, but it's going to happen eventually. And honestly, I think the sooner we rip that Band-Aid off and the sooner we just say, like, no, this is going to be mandatory. Like it's got to become mandatory. And I mean, the dark evil guy inside of me, as it was said in the article, right, we need to vaccinate everyone. Well, the United States isn't selling to Africa. They're not selling to India, right? They're not selling because they can't afford it. And so you're literally just allowing, like, coronavirus cesspools to exist in the world and allowing it to continue to transmit and allowing it to continue to go around. That's authoritarianism. Like, so is telling people that they have to wear a seatbelt, right? Like, telling people that they have to... like, that they can't drive drunk. Like, we have rules for lots of things, right? Like, we've got rules for lots of things. In my view, it's kind of childish. Like, you're telling me, hold on, 1 second. My dog is, like, over here begging for peanut butter. Peanut butter. Like, you're telling me that you should have rules for driving a car, but you should just not have rules for deadly pandemics spreading through? I just feel like we're kind of mollycoddling people a little bit here. Like, we're mollycoddling people. We're saying, it's like we're trying to hold on to people and be like, it's okay, if you don't think the vaccine, I understand, right, all that kind of stuff. But, like, a cop pulls over a guy not wearing a seatbelt, they get a ticket. Like, is that authoritarianism? According to, like, this kind of way of thinking, sure. And, like, like, what's the point of having, like, a governmental body, right? Like, and I just find that this authoritarianism argument, like, it's coming from this sort of naive, and I'm not saying that's what you're doing, Robin. I think that you're being a bit sarcastic when you're saying that, but like, we have rules. Like, we have rules. Yeah, onward. Sorry for the long text. It's just a scary realization I had. That's why I wanted to jump right into it, but I could tell. I could tell. Like you popped on and immediately came in, and so I thought, and I don't know that that actually helps quell any of the concerns, because like there is kind of like a mixture, right? And Mach, you're right. In every society, people exchange some rights for basic protection. The same is true with vaccines. It's true for capitalist societies. It's true for socialist societies. It's true for nationalist societies. Unless you live in an anarchist society like the Native Americans, who are, but like, we don't actually know that much about how their social structure worked, because we basically just went in there and just ripped them apart. So for all we know, they would have had like tight controls on this kind of stuff. And that's true, actually. Native Americans who are all but destroyed by disease. You got to have rules. Like, I don't understand why we're in this kind of, well, I mean, I do understand why we're in this position where we think that rules are bad. Like, the earth has rules, right? The earth has rules. And we should at very least, like, and this is basically where I'm landing, right? That, like, if governments make rules that don't align with the rules that exist in the world, then you can say very clearly, like, yeah, that's a bad rule, like that's authoritarianism, right? Creating a rule that doesn't align with the rules of the earth, you can very cleanly say that that's authoritarianism. Creating a rule that aligns completely with the rules that exist on the earth, I don't see how that's authoritarianism. Just like acknowledge reality as real. The trouble is that we, like North American society especially, is so deeply awash in propaganda, so deeply awash in misinformation, so deeply awash in kind of delusional thinking, that it's difficult to parse what is real or what is false. Which, again, as I say all the time on this channel, is why it's dangerous to have organizations like the CIA operating in your society, because they really heighten the mistrust and the misinformation that exists in your society. I knew you were, Robin. I knew you were. And yeah, Ega, how you doing, Ega? And you, Matthias, how you doing? Rules need to be agreed upon by the society. Yeah, the government exploits rules too. You have to be careful. There is something true about that. The FN had a talking circle and took a very, very long time to come to a consensus. But then they had a high buy-in. Yeah. Well, and I don't like, this is, like, we need to slow down generally. Like, I mean, why, the only people who want to put us in a rush are capitalists and salesmen, right? They want you to make a decision really fast so that they can make wealth for themselves. But, like, we should be considering, like, rules, and they should take a little while to pass and to put into place. Like, unless we are literally at a place where, like, we are under attack now, this decision should take a little while to come to a consensus. Like, we need to slow down generally, right? And we're just in this, like, heightened craze at the moment. Yes, I would like to rush towards climate stability. Well, you know what? The number one thing that we could do as a people to rush towards climate stability would be to stop. Would be to just stop doing most things. That most things have embedded in them a continuing rush to this climate catastrophe. And if we just stopped doing stuff, you know, we'd be better off. Like, we keep thinking about, like, oh, we've got to make some kind of new technology. Oh, we got to make some new thing. We got to do some new thing. We got to do this and do that and do this and do the other thing. When, like, the number one thing that we could do would be to stop doing stuff. That would actually be the number one thing. That it, like, just stop consuming power, stop making junk, defund the American military, right? Stop, but, like, I don't know if it's the number one polluter, but definitely one of the big polluters is the American military, right? That, like, the American military going around and bombing Somalia, bombing Syria, like, this continuous godless war that's constantly ongoing, the idea that they're trying to ramp up to go to war with China, right? That they're doing all that kind of stuff. It pollutes. There's a ton of pollution involved in all of this. And, like, stop it. What's it all for? Like, what's that all for, by the way? Like, oh, stealing their resources. Just stop. Just I don't get why this is like a difficult thing for us to do. Just like stop. It's odd that we can literally imagine like a post-apocalyptic hellscape of our own design where we've destroyed ourselves, but we literally cannot imagine a society where we just like don't do stuff. Like it's not part of how we think. Yeah, good point. I'm full of them. I mean, I'm full of something, Aga. Yeah, Matthias, I think it's literally corporate shareholders and energy bigwigs holding back everything. Well, and like this sort of delusional Cold War thinking, right? Like there's I am going to get into, where is he? Stephen Harper recently had a recent conversation, a very rare interview. He doesn't give interviews very often. And he gives an interview, and I listened to some of it. I'm going to be listening to it all and perhaps doing a video because he gives them so rarely. And I am generally convinced that there is just this old kind of Cold War way of, and when I say Cold War, I literally mean like the war against, like the Cold War against the Russians, sort of way of viewing the world that is itself completely detached from the reality of what's going on in the modern world, and that what we really are facing is a group of people who are refusing to acknowledge that reality is real. I'm sure we'll come across it as I go through these. I've lost the... Yeah, we'll get into that and we'll have my commentary on it because it's... Anyway. Some infrastructure would also be nice. Yeah, can't go anywhere in town without a car. Yeah, infrastructure, eh? Odd how like China has high-speed rail going everywhere and then also going all across like the continent. And high-speed rail that's going like 600 kilometers an hour. But like we literally like we can't go anywhere without like a fossil fuel spewing. Like it's like we're just like the Flintstones up in here, right? Like we're just completely backwards. Yeah, they buy out every politician. We don't even get a say. Yeah, that's the way of it. That's the way of it. Okay, I just wanted to point this out because I think it's fun. And so here's a gold medalist, sharpshooter. This is her stance. This is how she shoots. This is some like anime shit right here, right? Like look at this lady. She's just like pointing her gun, shooting away, like and just like so chill, just like boink. Boink, boink. Well, part of the problem mocked with representative electoralism, it like I actually genuinely think that the electoralism wouldn't be so bad, but we have these billionaires, right? That the billionaires have taken over the system because they have so much wealth to be able to do it. Yeah, they have fallout shelters under their homes. They know what they're doing, but like, that's not a solution, right? Like that's just like an acknowledgement that the problem is coming. But then it's like that itself is like a form of madness, right? It's this madness that that these billionaires are going to just live in their fallout shelters. Like, is that a life that they genuinely want? Is that what you want to do? If you're in the billionaire class, you literally want to shift your entire transit or your entire society into being like underground bunkers and shit. Like it's like the Fallout series. Like it's crazy. It's just this insane madness that these billionaires have focused on. Hey, Garden Mice, how you doing? The SkyTrain transit out here in BC is lovely. All we need is more of it. Yeah. To them, solutions are expenditures. Well, because they are parasites, right? They have gathered and hoarded all the wealth that we need to actually create solutions. And of course, they've gathered all the wealth under the lie that it was all going to trickle down, right? And it's not trickling down. They're building cock rockets and shit like that, right? Like they're And fallout shelters and stupid, like Jeffrey Epstein's pedophile island and stuff like this. That's what they're doing with their wealth. They're not interested in solutions, right? And especially if you're someone like Stephen Harper who doesn't see climate change as a problem, right? I learned just now that you people have a holiday called Civic Holiday. And I'm not sure I've ever heard a more bland name for anything. Do we have a holiday called Civic Holiday? Civic Holiday Canada. The first Monday in August. Civic Holiday. That'll get renamed eventually. That's so funny, dude. Hello, welcome to Civic Holiday, the day where we celebrate being civic. Yeah, that's right, buddy. Eggplant to Mars. Oh, yeah, people voted in Trump actually thinking he was gunning for the common man. I know. Well, that just shows you how desperate, right? The desperation in the populace. Because, like, they got to do something. Hippity hoppity, abolish private property. I really like this. I'm going to save this one. This one gets saved. Because, I mean, it's an adorable little frog. I would love to have this mug. What a great mug this would be, eh? Oh, yeah, that was that. Oh, here's a great statement made. This is in regard to nursing, right? We're just talking about COVID, so I think this is really something. So, hold on. Let's get the volume up. And I'm going to run off. Be right back.
The average age of a nurse in this country is 50, and 70% of nurses are over the age of 40. However, the most concerning and significant statistic that you may not be aware is that up to 50% of our new nursing graduates leave the bedside within 2 years of practice, the largest exodus from any profession. We are facing, with all combined factors, a nearly 1.25 million nursing shortage between the year 2020 and 2025 just in the United States. If we do not fundamentally change the way we have been engaging nurses in healthcare, the predictions we fear the most will become reality, and there will be no nurses to care for our sick and dying. But Florence Nightingale seemed to know that we were going to face significant challenges ahead in nursing and in healthcare, and she left us with this guiding principle. She said, were there none in the world who were discontented with what they have, the world would never reach anything better. And what that means to me is in that moments of greatest challenge and despair, there is the opportunity for great change. Were there none who were discontented, they would never create the change or the innovation the world so desperately needs. The answers to our current healthcare challenges will not be solved by the status quo or conventional practice. The answers to our challenges will be found in those who embrace and cultivate a collaborative environment of innovation to drive forward and advance healthcare for all.
Yeah, Matthias, I think you're just nailing it, right? They do all the hard work, get paid way less than their coworkers because they don't have special skills. Well, and then also, like, just the abuse that nurses are taking in the midst of this pandemic. Like here in Ontario, they received a funding cut. And you see that happen with Kenny, right? The Kenny administration over in Alberta is cutting funding for nurses. Like, well, I can't imagine why we can't keep hold of nurses while they work with, like, this sea of human misery, right? Like, even if every person they interacted with was, like, nice and lovely, which they're not, obviously, because they're humans, especially humans in a capitalist society. But even if they were, like, super nice, you're still dealing with people in, like, a state of distress, right? You're still dealing with, like, these horrible outcomes and these horrible situations while experiencing, like, funding cuts, while experiencing, like, a diminishment in your quality of life, while experiencing a diminishment in everything around you. So that what? Jeff Bezos can fire a fucking cock rocket into space, as near as I can tell. Matthias, I've worked too many jobs where that's been the case. They really go out of their way to let you firmly know which rung on the ladder you're on. Yeah, and they tell you straight out that you're replaceable, right? Like, they tell you straight out, like, oh yeah, you can't get a raise because we could just replace you, right? Like, as far as I'm concerned, the capitalist workplace is abusive. And everything I'm seeing about, like, the work shortages and about this kind of stuff is just a continuation of this narrative that of abuse, that workers are abused on the regular, that customers abuse them because customers feel as though they have the right to abuse workers, that workers are not people, right? And this is true of nurses as well, like that they're just like an NPC, right? They're just like a non-player character who is there to facilitate your princely demands for junk, right? And this sort of like absurdist idea that you can just like, yeah, and Matthias, that's exactly what's happening. Like, and it's happening actively, right? That the people who are doing like, people are walking out of these jobs like en masse. Like, and they're doing so with like statements of revolution, and they're saying straight out, like, we're no longer going to do this shit. Like, it's just not going to happen anymore because honestly, the society isn't worth fighting for anymore, right? That's my perspective. Like, this capitalist society is no longer worth fighting for, and so people are stopping, and that's extra true of nurses. Why would anyone choose to be a nurse? I actually know people who like were going on the path to nursing and like really realized like, nope, this is not going to be worth it. Like, it's just not going to be worth it. And it isn't. Why would anyone think that being a nurse is worth it? Like, there's a ton of other jobs that you could take. There's a ton of other things that you could do. And what's so ironic about this discussion surrounding nursing is that the people who are going to eat it first, the people who are really going to feel it first, are the boomers, the very people who have been voting to decline the quality of life for nurses, right? That they're going to be in these nursing homes, they're the ones that are going to be needing the care, they're the ones that are going to be needing the nurses, and guess who's not going to be there for them? Nurses. And when they turn around and complain to us the way that they will, right? Well, why would we say anything other than, but this is what you voted for? Like, you voted for this. This is what you wanted. You voted for this. Over and over and over again, you refuse to listen to your own children. You refuse to listen to what anyone around you was saying. You didn't listen to experts. You didn't listen to your own family members. And now here you are in need of a nurse to actually help you, and you can't get one, and you're complaining, but you're the one that voted for it. So, in the end, old man, shut the fuck up. You voted for it. Live with it. And I just don't know how we're not, like, how are we going to deal with that? How are we going to deal with this, like, overwhelming group of elderly people who are going to be abandoned in our healthcare systems because that's what they voted for? I just don't know what we're supposed to do. I just don't know what we're supposed to do because you can't convince them, right? You can't rationalize with these people because they're not rational until finally it's like right in front of their face, smacking them in the forehead. And like what are we supposed to do? Yeah, first of all, hey Ninetails, how you doing? Yeah, the Fritos Lay's people were being forced to work 80 hours a week. Unbelievable, eh? For what? For what? So that we can have like chips? So that we can like eat chips? Like, are you fucking that sounds insane, right? Just say it out loud and recognize how fucking insane it sounds. That you're forcing people to work 80-hour work weeks so that you can get a bag of chips. Go fuck yourself. We're such a baby society. We're such a society full of babies, and just like the idea that somebody could like, maybe don't work that much. Like, maybe don't. Like, maybe just normal 40-hour work. Even 40-hour work week. I'm like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, what? For chips? Like, fucking what? And, like, and and if you can't do it, like, if you can't just have people working 40-hour work weeks and have, like, a normal fucking workplace, and if you can't do that and make it pay, then guess what? We don't need chips. Like, I don't get how this is, like, how that's the irrational position. That's saying, yeah, if you have to abuse people to get chips, then maybe don't have chips, has become, like, the radical position. Whereas, like, hey, maybe paying people nicely and letting them have a nice life while simultaneously getting your chips. But we all know what's going on. We all know what's going on. Why pay 2 employees when you can pay 1, right? Why have 2 people who you have to pay like double benefits and double all this kind of stuff when you just pay 1, right? So that you, the sociopathic capitalist at the top of this, who incidentally does no work and does not participate in this and is worthless, can get like an extra yacht, right? We know that that's what's happening. It's very obvious that's what's happening. And it's just like a baby society. It's just like a childish, like I say it over and over and over and over and over again on this channel. This society is the society that a normal society would make up as a parody, right? Like when Alice goes down the rabbit hole, right, and is confronted with like the society and the Queen of Hearts and all this kind of stuff, like it's like some author like that would make up a society and like present it to their friends, and they would all be like, oh, what an insane, whimsical, crazy place that no one would tolerate and live in. But that's our lives. We abuse our nurses, we abuse workers, we abuse everyone. Everyone, without exception, is experiencing this kind of abuse. And what's insane is that many people then turn around and just like find like a Stockholm syndrome level of pride in it. That they're just sitting there being like, yeah, my abuse, I'm better because I'm being abused. And like, if you say to people like, hey, maybe we should remove the abuse, maybe we should stop abusing people, people are like, well, then people can't find their meaning. And society will plunge into despair if we stop abusing people. Like, what the fuck is wrong with us? There's something deeply wrong with us. And this is not a normal society, and we are not acting in normal, rational ways. That we're literally like this is just like a fake pretend society. This is a parody society. This is a satire society. I'm like literally waiting for someone to like pull a cord and be like, haha, surprise, it was all a prank. Yeah, the real society is over here. Yeah, this is all just like a fake made up thing that we did to just prank you. Haha, got you, bitch. All right, let's go over here. We're like, yeah, everything's normal and rational. Ugh. Victini Reshiram. Haha, I'm on a job that has, for over 2 years, been without a union steward. Oh, that's great. I've never had a union job. It's never happened. And seems like it would be nice. Yeah, the Chip King needs 5 boats and 10 cars. Yeah, like what the fuck? Like what the fuck? Why? And like all of those boats and cars are just gonna sit there anyway because they're children, right? And we know how children act. They get a new toy, they play with it for 5 minutes, and then it sits in the corner and they forget about it. Yeah, your union's just gangsters, eh? Yeah. Well, because I'm generally of the opinion that the capitalist system has just co-opted the unions, right? That the capitalists have such an overwhelming amount of wealth that they can just buy off union leadership. And even if you are going into the union leadership and you like win the election and you stand up to be elected in the union and all that kind of stuff, well, what's going to happen? You're going to go talk to the capitalists, and the capitalists are going to say, hey, here's $100,000. Yes, no. And if you like, pull up the gumption to say no to it, then they'll be like, okay, 200,000, right? You're going to say yes eventually. Crouching, Domic, Hidden Merriman. Sup, John? Almost missed the stream. When does it usually start them? Stream starts 6 to 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time every weekday. please come on in. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And hey, if you've got $1 jangling around in your pocket, maybe think about donating down below. We need to be supporting leftist voices like mine, pushing back against the overwhelming tsunami of fascism that's taking over our society. I would really love to live in a normal society. I would love to live in a society where everyone's taken care of, where there's not homeless people, where things are taken care of, where we don't have a climate change catastrophe destroying us while huge swaths of the populace deny that it's happening. I would love to live in a normal, rational society. Instead of that, we got to deal with these absurd, crazy fascists taking everything over. So, think about donating $1 so that I can actually eat. Thanks. Yep, I do know what happened at the CLC convention this year. Yeah, keeping the status quo. And the people I'm talking to, right? Like, I'm part of an organization called Socialist Action, and they run people at the CLC. And near as I can tell, right, the union leadership that exists there is completely in bed with the capitalist class. That they are just like an extension of the capitalist class. And it would be very difficult to break that kind of corrupt arrangement. Like, because genuinely, I think that anyone that got elected into those positions would be bought instantly. And it wouldn't cost that much. Right? Like, this is fundamentally why it's so dangerous to have even a single billionaire in your society. Because if you have even a single billionaire, they can reconfigure the society to suit them. And it doesn't cost them that much, right? People just have this weird idea. Like, they don't know how much $1 billion actually is. That, like, a billionaire can take $1 million and give it to someone, and it's not even 1% of their wealth. Like, that's an obscene ability to give to somebody, to be able to create a millionaire and not have it really impact your wealth pool that much, right? Like we walk around pretending as though billionaires have like a limit to the wealth that they're able to distribute, but that the limit is not like it's pretty high, and like you can buy like there's how many people are involved in the Canadian political, how many seats? Right, you got what, 300 some odd seats? So if you give each one of those guys $1 million, right? So 300 seats, $1 million, $300 million, and you have $1 billion, that's not even half your wealth. And you've bought the political system, right? And you can do that. Like, you can do that if you have $1 billion. So like, this idea that we should allow a billionaire to exist in the society is grotesque. It's grotesque, it's obscene, it's disgusting. Like, a single billionaire with $1 billion is a grotesque policy failure that by itself must be resolved. Or else the society will reconfigure itself to worship this billionaire. Get rid of it. Like, get rid of it. Like, I wouldn't accept a king walking around. I don't know why we're accepting a billionaire walking around. Yeah, and the highest level in CLC get paid almost $200,000 a year, and when you think about that, that's not that much money, right? $200,000, but that's how little it takes to buy somebody off in this society. Like $200,000, like $200,000, that's it. Like that's less than 0.1% of the wealth of a billionaire with $1 billion. It's nothing, right? You can just accidentally lose that as a billionaire and not even care. Yeah, entering into a contract with capitalists legitimizes capitalist power. Exactly. Union leaders do enjoy their scraps. Yeah. The AFL-CIO CLC is a puppet organization that manufactures consent for the capitalists. I think that's true. Like, I understand why unions happened, and the union labor struggle was bloody, right? The capitalists, like, the first aerial bombardment that ever occurred on American soil was a company, a corporation, dropping bombs on striking workers, right? And I mean, you've got the Battle of Blair Mountain, right? The Wobblies. Like, it's the union and labor history of capitalist America has been brutal and bloody. But the capitalists sort of figured out that, in the end, we don't actually have to go to war with these guys. We don't actually have to bomb them. We can just let them be a union, let them elect who they're going to elect, and then buy that guy, right? And it's easy to do. What are your opinions on Vosh? Is he a good debater in your opinion? Vosh is a pedophile. He's a pedophile defender. He defends positions like bestiality. I mean, that's quite the claim. So, where did that go? Did I just save that over here? I don't care. Yeah, everything that I've seen about this guy, like, he defends pedophiles. My position on pedophilia is that it's wrong. And if you are going to maintain a position like pedophilia is fine, or that we should reduce the age of consent to, like, literally 12 years old, then I don't really give a shit what your opinions are. I also find that he is basically an imperialist. Like, Vosh isn't a leftist. Right? Like, he says that he's a leftist, but, like, you can't be a pro-imperialism and be a leftist. It's just not something that you're allowed to do. Like, he's a liberal. At the end of the day, he's just another one of these fucking whingy liberals. And, yeah, no. Like, Vosh is one of these guys. It's kind of surprising to see that he has attained the level that he has attained, given that he is a pedophile. Like, he is a pedophile, and like, he has said things like he doesn't think that that bestiality is fine because animals, you don't need to that animals can't have consent, or that you don't need to get consent from animals. This kind of, like, grotesque, disgusting position that is indefensible in my view. Like, that I expect that kind of stuff from, like, hard right neo-fascists. The idea that Vosh is walking around pretending to be a leftist, no, he's at best a liberal, and like, so when it comes to, like, his opinion on, like, issues, I just don't give a shit. Like, I just don't care. Like, if somebody put a Vosh clip in front of me, I mean, like, maybe if they were one of my Patreons, maybe if they're one of the people who are actually paying me, I'd, like, watch it and then comment. But, like, some rando put a Vosh video in front of me, I'd just be like, no, I don't have time for pedos. Like, I just don't. Like, sorry. There are positions that discredit you completely, right? Like, this is something that is worth talking about. There are positions that completely discredit you. And being pro-pedophilia is definitely one of them. If you are pro-pedophilia, it doesn't matter what your positions on anything else are. Like, we can safely put you in the dustbin. Like, if you're a racist, for example, like, we can successfully just put you over here in the dustbin. We don't need to listen to you anymore. Sam Harris, in my view, completely discredited himself as an intellectual by being pro-torture, right? Like, creating a pro-torture argument while the United States was actively torturing people. Into the dustbin. We don't need to listen to you anymore, Sam Harris. Like, you are not a credible intellectual any longer. And these guys seem to believe that there's, like, wiggle room on this shit. That, like, oh yeah, sure, you can rape children, and then I can also have an opinion on, like, imperial, America and all of this. No, not really. Not really. So, I mean, is he a good debater? I genuinely think that Vosh's popularity exists only because he was just one of the first, right? If you can be the first at something, then you get to kind of be grandfathered in, right? But, like, I just don't. I don't know why people keep listening to him at the end of the day. Yeah. And then think that Musk is doing all this with taxpayer money. Yeah, that's the other thing. Like, people worship these billionaires. Like, these billionaires get all this worship, and it's like, you get that these guys are literally subsidized, right? Like, you get that they get, like, billions of dollars in government handouts. Like, billionaires, honestly, the number one thing that would actually destroy these billionaires to the ground is if you just stop subsidizing them. If you straight up just stop subsidizing these billionaires, they're so stupid and incompetent, and they don't know what to do with their money, that they'd lose it very quickly. They would just stop being billionaires very quickly, because the only thing that keeps them afloat is the fact that the government keeps giving them money. Yeah, but still, the poverty line in Canada is less than 40,000 a year. It's less than 30,000, if I'm not mistaken. I'm not 100% where it's at, but yeah, Robin, I agree with you on this. He's also a bad faith and incompetent debater to answer the question. I find that anytime I tune into him, he just kind of deflects and doesn't really directly answer things. Because I just don't think he knows that much. And again, I don't see how you could be like a pro-imperialist and call yourself a leftist. But I doubt he even understands any of that. He's just kind of, again, like one of the guys that was here first, and that counts. You know, if you get in the door first. And yeah, I'm seeing that happen. Onward, that's a good analysis. I'm seeing that happen to a lot of online commentators. Like, I worry about that with, like, Sam Cedar. I worry about that. Who's another one? Where, like, they're not... you know who I think about this? And I actually like this guy a lot. So, and I don't mean to bring him up in conjunction with Vosh, because I actually really like Thought Slime. Thought Slime I really, really like. But I'm finding that he's like drifted away from politics. He's like drifted away from having like critical analysis of his society into kind of being more of an aloof kind of pixie who sort of just finds random subjects that he likes to talk about. And when he talks about it, it's good, and it's all that kind of stuff, but like it's not exactly heavy-hitting stuff, you know? It's not exactly heavy-hitting commentary. And so I just find that, like, and capitalism tends to do that to online commentators, right? That you have to become more concerned about your channel than your society. That's how capitalism works. That you have to spend all your time talking about the trend, and you got to follow the trend, because you got to be worried about growing your channel, and you got to be worried about a business, and you can't just treat it like a commentary on a growing kind of thing. Like, that's one of the things that I'm really worried about for myself. That's one of my things that I'm worried about for myself, is that, like, will I ever get to a point where I am kind of chasing that trend kind of thing, and I'm chasing the way to think instead of staying true to just being like a commentator on the society in a more impactful and meaningful way, you know? And like, I also find that lots of these guys, like, they get their online group, but then they're not really that interested in, like, you know, funneling energy onto the street, which is where the energy needs to go. That the energy does need to go in the street. And it's not about, exactly, Vicini, it's not about the reality, it's about the online presence. And like, there are exceptions, but the exceptions seem to be minor, right? They seem to be very minor, right? Like, I think about, like, Jimmy Dore was somewhat instrumental in the movement for block the vote for Medicare and all that. And he will also have people on who are actively trying to take to the streets and all of that kind of stuff. But he himself is not attempting to galvanize people onto the streets, which this is a great opportunity to remind people. August 21st, Yonge and Dundas Square, Toronto. If you're in the city, come on down, 11 a.m. We're going to block the street. I'm going out tomorrow to hand out flyers. I've got like 500 flyers printed out. If you are able to join in, let me know. I know you guys are all spread across the place, so I doubt I'll get any hooks on that. But the Vosh and Destiny are the evolution of conservatives. I definitely see where you're coming from with that, Nine Tails, but I just think that people are starting to realize that liberals are not that different from conservatives. I think that's really what it is. Is that, like, I take a look at Vosh and I take a look at Destiny especially. Like, Destiny is, like, the liberal. He is, like, he's just the poster boy for liberalism, right? Like, his position is that capitalism is and this is his stated thing. He says it, that capitalism is a net good, and that incremental reforms are necessary, right? And because he has this kind of position, he doesn't actually understand what socialism is, right? Which he outright said in his debate with Richard Wolff, right? He doesn't understand what socialism is because he's such a hardline, hardcore liberal that he doesn't get that eventually to create a stable society, at some point you have to confront these capitalists because they are parasites, that they are not a net good. They are a complete drain. And he says like really dumb fuck things. Like he actually thinks CEOs do work, which I think is an embarrassment. I think you have to like be kind of like, that's kind of a cringy, embarrassing position to believe that CEOs actually do work. Like if you're paid, $30 million, you're not working. You're going to pay somebody to do your work for you because it doesn't cost that much. Like if you get paid $30 million, you're going to take $100,000 of that, hire an assistant and make them do all the work. Right? And your job is to kind of show up and make sure they're doing the work. And if they're not doing the work, well, you fire them and hire somebody else. Right? And that's your job as CEO, right? That what CEOs are hired for is not their work, right? It's their obedience. It's their obedience. That's what they're hired for. So that when the shareholders say, hey, you need to lay off 10% of the workforce, hey, you need to do whatever, blah, 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 make line go up, right? The CEO goes, oh, okay. Instead of saying, oh, no, we can't do that, right? They say, yes, okay, absolutely. And that's what CEOs are paid for. They're not paid for their work. But people like Destiny doesn't actually have an accurate critique of his society, right? He doesn't really have an active critique of capitalism, which is why he thinks it's a net good. I prefer Trey Crowder over Steven Crowder. I don't know who Trey Crowder is. Trey Crowder. That's what I think when you say Crowder. I think Trey Crowder. What about Hakeem? Are you talking about Hassan B? Are you talking about Hassan? Nope, Hassan. Talking about Piker? Is this who you're talking about? If this is who you're talking about, this guy's great. My only critique for this guy is that I wish that he was mobilizing people to the street. I think he would actually be very effective at that. I think he would be very effective at mobilizing people to the streets. I think he would be an effective leader. I think he would be a very powerful leader. I understand why he doesn't. I always understand why they don't, because doing that is actually quite difficult. That his position is quite comfortable at this stage in the game. But his analysis is quite tight. He's very intelligent. He's always worth listening to. And I find myself, like, whenever I have a disagreement with him, it's on very, very, like, thin, like, so thin that they're not even worth bringing up. That they're like petty differences more than anything. But his analysis is strong. He understands what he's talking about. He knows what he's talking about. And he has a backbone. That's what I really like about him. He's got a backbone. He's really willing to shout at his own chat. He's really willing to scream at people. So it's like, I really like him. I really like him. Of any commentator out there, I think he's the one that I listen to with the most readiness, I guess is the way to say it. That like I'm ready to agree with what he has to say, and it does take getting into like the really high level of journalists like Abby Martin, Aaron Matei, Ben Norton, to kind of supersede him. I find him to be quite competent and pretty much on the money. But again, I wish that he was pulling people into the streets. And I wish he was finding a way to do that. Thought Slime and the Surfs will shout out smaller leftist channels. Yeah, that's absolutely the truth. And they definitely see themselves as part of that kind of mix, which, again, is useful. Jimmy just did the M for a march. Yeah, like I say, like Jimmy Dore, he's willing to do that kind of stuff, and again, like that's what really increases his credibility, in my view. You know, like I don't necessarily think that he is like a central organizer, but he's definitely going and blowing it up. Chrystia Freeland just announced the Trudeau government is extending the CRB benefit by another month in time for fall elections. Yeah. I just think that if you're falling for this, like if you're falling for these fucking liberals, like Chrystia Freeland just announced the Trudeau government is extending the CRB benefit by another month in time for fall elections. More breadcrumbs by the liberals so Kool-Aid drinkers can vote for them at the polls. Yeah, that's exactly the analysis, right? They're just like, and Aga, that's crazy for liberals to pull that kind of scam. Not surprising, though. Well, and, like, we all know that eventually this capitalist system collapses to a degree where they have to. They have to do something like the basic income. Like, we know that that's going to happen eventually because they'll be out of ideas. They won't know what else to do, right? And, like, the last thing that the capitalists want to do is raise wages so that people understand that they can get a better wage than what they get on a permanent basis. But there's not going to be enough jobs and there's not going to be enough stuff going on, right? That automation is kind of overwhelming everything, as well as also like the capitalists' own complacency and stupidity, right? Like they're not actually building high-speed rail. They're not actually like improving the society. They're not building infrastructure. They're not doing any of that kind of stuff with their money, right? They're fucking shooting rockets into space and stuff. Like they don't give a fuck. And they genuinely don't care if like the society falls behind China. Like they don't actually care about that because they don't really live here. Like this is the thing that people don't understand about these wealthy, incompetent, disconnected cocksuckers. They don't live here. They live in their own universes of their own creation. That if there's going to be high-speed rail, it's going to be their high-speed rail. And they're not going to build high-speed rail for who? The people? Who gives a fuck about those people? Like, who cares? I don't care. Why would I build... And you just listen to the conservative talking points to realize that, like, that's going to happen. Why would I build a high-speed rail that I'm not going to use? Right? Like, very straightforward lines of thinking that these guys have been very upfront with us about. Like, it's not a surprise. It's not like we're sitting here being like, what? How shocking that these sociopaths are going to abandon us, right? And so something like the basic income is going to happen eventually because they'll be out of ideas. They won't know what else to do. But the question is, how much misery are they going to spread throughout the society before that happens, right? Because they want to squeeze as much blood out of the stone as they can get. They want to squeeze as much labor out of the workforce as they can get. And they're not going to just like relinquish this kind of stuff freely. And so it doesn't surprise. And of course, this is how the liberals roll, right? Like, and I really hope that the NDP come out swinging and start saying like pretty outright, like we know what's going to happen. Like we know what's going to happen if we get a liberal majority. We know what's going to happen. It's going to be a hard-nosed Austerian government. That's exactly what's going to happen. Because at the end of the day, the liberals work for the capitalist class. That's who the liberals work for. That sure they're willing to throw out these breadcrumbs and sure they're willing to do this kind of stuff so long as you keep working for them. Right? Like, as long as you go to work on time and as long as you do the job so they don't have to, right? As long as they can go to brunch and sip on their tea and you know, talk about how great a job they're doing while you go and do all their work for them, right? Then they'll give you whatever breadcrumb you need, right? That's their job. But eventually, and we've seen this time and time again through history, eventually when the rubber hits the road, and, you know, the bill needs to be paid, well, they don't want to pay the bill either. Like, they don't want to do the work. They want you to do all the work, right? And they don't want to pay the bill. They want you to pay the bill, right? And so when the rubber hits the road, well, they're going to make you pay the bill with austerity policies. And if you get mad about it and you get grumbly with them, well, historically, what happens? Let's throw these liberals out and vote who? Conservative? Because, yeah, conservatives are well known for non-austerity politics, right? Like, here in Canada at this stage in the game, I genuinely think the only rational choice left, like the only rational choice left, is NDP. That if you're voting Conservative, you are voting for evil. Like it, and evil is the word to use. They're like the blackest evil fascists that we've seen. They're worse than Nazis because even the Nazis didn't try to destroy the entire species through climate change. And then a vote for Liberal is just like a gullible, like illiterate, stupid choice. It's like voting for like an abusive boyfriend who's like trying to make it up to you with like flowers and candy, right? Sure, baby, I beat you up in the past, but like here's some flowers and here's some candy, right? Like, no, fucking get rid of these guys. Like, break up with those guys. Get them out of here. Like, what's gonna happen is after you lock them in for another 4 years, right? After he gets the ring on your finger, right? He's just gonna go sit on the fucking couch and drink beer while you go do all the work. And when you come home exhausted at the end of the day, he's gonna be like, "Hey, baby, where's my money?" Right? And he's gonna go have sex with a hooker or something, right? He doesn't give a fuck about you. Doesn't care about you at all. He's going to put his black face on and he's going to go out and party with his friends. That's what's going to happen. And if those are your two options, if you're stuck in this like liberal conservative kind of thing, then you're just like a battered, abused housewife at this stage in the game. Break up with those guys, and the only rational choice left then is NDP. And if you're sitting there being like, oh, NDP, they're going to destroy the economy, well, good. Like, at least something will happen, right? Like, what's the worst thing that the NDP can do? Like, for real. Is it going to be worse than this? Probably not. Like, probably not by a wide measure. Like, oh no, the NDP might actually start doing something about climate change. Oh no, the NDP might actually start passing benefits and trying to help workers. Oh. Like, and genuinely, I think that voting NDP is the only rational decision, if only to scare the fucking shit out of the Conservatives and the Liberals. If only to say to these guys, hey, can you maybe stop with the fascism? Hey, maybe can you stop with the austerianism? Hey, I would like to live in a normal society. I would like to live in a rational society where everyone is working for the benefit of everyone else. Hey, maybe let's do away with all this garbage, this baby shit. Can we maybe start talking to one another like we're fucking adults, right? And Justin Trudeau is like the epitome of like put the populace to sleep. Justin Trudeau is like the epitome of just like the nice guy who's supposed to come out and lull everybody with his stupid lullaby kind of speak. And if you fall for it, then you're fucking stupid. Like, it really is that simple. Like, if you fall for it at this stage, you're just fucking stupid. Like, at least you're not evil, but you're fucking stupid. Get rid of these guys. Get rid of these guys. And I'm not, like, pounding on the NDP pulpit because I think Jagmeet is good. Big question marks surrounding this guy. Big question marks surrounding this guy. But at least he scares the shit out of these other guys, right? At least he scares the shit out of them. And that by itself is worth it. I missed a call to action tomorrow. I am GTA. Oh, that's okay, Victini. I haven't exactly been pounding the pulpit. Where and when tomorrow? No, buddy, don't even worry about it. Don't even worry about it. I'm literally just handing out flyers. I would prefer it if you just came August 21st, Yonge and Dundas Square, 11 a.m. That's where I really need people. Bring your friends. Bring everybody to that. Come to that event. It's an anti-poverty rally. Come August 21st. Saturday, 11 a.m., Yonge and Dundas Square. Come to that. Yeah, Hakeem is a communist. You say, Robin. I've never been sure what his position is. I just know that he's very knowledgeable. And so I kind of assumed that he was on that kind of socialist communist line because he speaks about communism and socialism without derision, and he's very knowledgeable. So his uncle is Senk? Really? I didn't know that. He won't do anything except cash a check. Okay, so it's a different guy. Okay. So Hakeem is a different guy. Okay. I don't know anything about this guy then. Posted a Trey Crowder link in Discord General. Hakeem. Let's take a look, man. Let's take a look. Jordan Peterson is not profound. Hakeem. Why is North Korea so weird? Okay, so he's just like, oh hey, I've actually watched something with him. We're in this. Let's capitalism. Someone's got to pay for this, right? Someone's paying for this shit. It's got. Oh, and I'm John Nicholas. This is actually good. This is the Yemen emergency. If we actually gave a fuck about the Yemen emergency, we'd actually like do something about it. Do I actually get to see this guy ever? Nah. Okay. Richard Wolff's always great, and if he's talking to Richard Wolff, that's good. Like Richard Wolff is like. We should be talking to Richard. Everybody should be talking to Richard Wolff. Okay, I won't. I don't know anything about this guy, so I'm not going to deep dive too much farther. Trey Crowder. COVIDiots continue to ruin everything for everyone as Delta variant rages. Are they related at all? Like, are they related at all? The Trey Crowder and Crowder? Anyway. Getting back at people working 80 hours a week making Frito and Cheetos. Don't worry, automation will take care of that. It's the great equalizer. Well, and it's so odd. Hey, Demand Better, how you doing? It's so odd. I need a punching bag with Jeff Bezos on it. I've been wanting a punching bag, so that would be a great idea. Get a punching bag with Jeff Bezos. Although I gotta tell you, man, I don't want to live. I don't want to fucking look at Jeff Bezos' stupid face every day. Like, that's what it comes down to. I don't want to... Nah. I'd get a punching bag, but I don't want to look at Jeff Bezos' dumb face every day. I don't see that as a motivator. I hope someday you'd get to interview Richard Wolff. You know what? And what's so funny to me is if I were to interview these guys, like, I think about that from time to time. Like, what happens if I get to a point where I would interview, like, Richard Wolff or Jordan Peterson? But the thing is that I don't think I would actually talk to these guys about, like, issues and shit. Because I'm more interested... Because I think that their issue, like, in terms of the issues, I think that their positions have been well stated. Right? I think that you can find them. They're easy to find. Same deal with Chris Hedges. The thing that nobody knows about these guys is, like, I would talk to these guys and I would want them to be telling me stories about, like, their childhood. I'd want them to be telling stories about, like, their university years. You know, I would want them to be telling me stories about what it was like growing up. You know this is exactly the person. Do you guys know the Hot Ones? Do you guys know this guy? Hot Ones? He's, Hot Ones. This guy's great. So, it's an interview show where he brings people on and asks them really interesting, well-researched, unique questions while they're steadily eating progressively hotter and hotter hot wings. Till they're eating, like, the hottest possible shit that you can find. And what I love about this show is that it reveals people. People get, like, revealed because they're, like, eating this. They're like fighting. They're like fighting the like spice and the heat while simultaneously needing to actually talk about their own career and all this kind of stuff. So they're being asked questions that they don't normally answer. So while simultaneously fighting with this like food thing. And so I have like actually fallen in love with people watching this show. People who I have like kind of dismissed and not really paid that much attention to, or been like, I don't really care. And then I've seen them on this Hot One show and been like, wow, what an interesting person. What an eclectic and interesting person. And this is the guy that I would want to see interviewing people like Jordan Peterson, people like Richard Wolff, Chris Hedges, right? Cornel West. Can you imagine Cornel West like dealing with eating hot wings while talking about his society? And it's silly, like it sounds like a silly premise, but that's kind of what I would want to do with these sorts of guys. Because I feel like if you're into them and you know their position and all that kind of stuff, then there's plenty of interviews. There's plenty of stuff. But I want to get into the more visceral meat and potatoes about what it is to be like a human being, what it is to be alive in the world, and what are we fighting for? What are we here to do? Like why is it that we still move forward and fight back, and all of that, like and while simultaneously tying it into like where did they come from? Like when Chris Hedges talks about his upbringing, you really, like, he's a Presbyterian minister trained at Harvard Divinity. He teaches at prisons and all of this, and you get this real sense of his deep, deep humanity. And I don't know, maybe that's like self-aggrandizing in a way, or selfish, I guess, because I know so much about what they stand. Like I bet you I have read everything that Chris Hedges has ever written, and I bet I've probably seen most of his interviews. Like anything Chris Hedges does, I pay attention to. And so if I were to talk to him, I don't think I would spend too much time hashing over that stuff. I think that I would be way more interested in like how do you not fucking just put a bullet in your head, dude? Like how is it that what is it that's keeping you going forward? How is it that you're constantly in this sort of state? And I talked to him about moments when he like beat a guy up, or talked to him about a time he got arrested. Like talk to him about those sort of deeply personal moments. That's where I'd like to go with these guys, because I feel like a big reason why they don't get a lot of attention is because they're not, because they're very, let's be straight, like they're kind of unapproachable, right? Like Chris Hedges is a very like stoic, sort of depressing kind of an individual, straight out. Richard Wolff has a very kind of like steady kind of way of talking about himself. Even Cornel West has that kind of thing. But if you got these guys into a position where they're like laughing or dealing with stress, I think that's what I like so much about Hot Ones, is because you see these people dealing with stress. And I think that their humanity could not help but come out. And so, anyway, that's I doubt it will ever happen. I feel like by the time I get to a point where I'm prominent enough that these guys would even be interested in being interviewed by me, they'd probably already be dead. We'll see. We'll see. Yeah, deal with stress through music and comedy. Exactly. You got to deal with it however you can. Right? I play video games. That's my shtick. So I'm so bummed that I had to uninstall a game recently because of, I don't know if you guys know about the Blizzard Activision scandal, but like Blizzard Activision scandal. California sues Activision Blizzard over a culture of constant harassment, sexual harassment scandals all over, and then the CEO of Blizzard Activision is tied up in the Jeffrey Epstein scandal. And it was so depressing because it's like one of my favorite games, but I'm like, no, not going to participate. Which sucks, but what can you do? So, declassified. In 1971, under heavy secrecy, Israel built 2 detention camps in the Sinai Peninsula where innocent Palestinians were sent. One was used for the families of Fatah members who were suspected of terrorism. One was for unemployed young men. So concentration camps. Israel had concentration camps for Palestinians. It's okay to say that. Yeah. To the ones who unsubbed from John's Great Channel, boo. I knew it was going to happen, dude. The QAnon thing. That's exactly, I knew it. That's why I was so like about doing it, but I knew it would happen. Like, and it always happens that way. What happens every single time, and I'm used to it by now, is I put forward one of my like journalist kind of like 5-minute videos, right? And that attracts a lot of people, right? But those people don't really get what they're getting into with me, right? That they think that I'm just going to be like another liberal is what they think they're getting into. even though my name is the Canadian Commie. But even then, they don't even get what that is, and they don't really know. And so they're like, oh, they're interested. But they're liberals. You know, chances are good that they're liberals. And so they get into the channel, and they start to see my content. They start to see what happens. And, you know, I come out with takes that aren't the hard line, like, abandon QAnon, fuck these guys, like, forge up and fight and all that kind of stuff. And I try to create a more nuanced position. That always chases people away. I always lose people with that shit. Like, nuanced position, commentary that doesn't align with my dual belief system, I always lose people. It happens all the time. But I don't lose heart on that, because the people who I do get, who stick around, are, and I am saying this with full cognizant awareness that I am talking about you guys, but the people who stick around are smart, motivated, intelligent people who are interested in nuance and who are interested in understanding the world in a non-binary kind of a way. What? Conspiracy theory nut jobs joined because yes, but then unsub because they were faced by reality, historical materialism. Well, and I don't think that they're conspiracy theory nut jobs. I actually think that, like a lot of my journalistic reporting, and this happens when I use music as well. I'll use like a song in some of my stuff, like I'll sing a song, and people can just be attracted because they're like, oh wow, emotion, right? Thoughts of fighting against the establishment, but they don't really understand what that means. And so when I release something that is about a controversial issue, like QAnon, and it's not straight out abandon QAnon, like here's a great example. This is actually a really, really good example. Not that long ago, the Halifax Pride broke severed ties with the libraries because the libraries refused to ban a transphobic book, right? And it was a transphobic book. Like, there's no possible way that you could defend this. And I lost subscribers, and I was even banned from a subreddit that I post to fairly regularly because my view was that this is a bad tactical move. This is a bad strategic move. It's a bad strategic move for Pride to break ties with the libraries while demanding for them to ban this book. And because the library's position is, we're definitely not going to ban a book. Like, we're not going to get involved in that conversation at all. Because once we ban this book, what stops us from banning that book? Right? And we are simply not even going to enter into the discussion of banning books. That's not what we're here for. In fact, what we're here for is exactly the opposite. We are here to allow the most amount of people to gain access to these books so that they can read them and see what they're about. And fundamentally, what you are saying is, by insisting that the library ban a book, is that it's only the rich that can get access to these books. And so that was my position, and I made it very clear. I even did an analysis of the book and said, like, this woman that wrote this book, I even forget the name of it, but the woman that wrote this book is stupid. Like, she's very stupid. Her take of, like, there didn't used to be so many trans people, now there are a lot of trans people around. I blame the internet, is stupid, because, like, she doesn't understand or recognize that, like, there always were these trans people. There always were trans people around, right? Trans people were always around. We just beat the shit out of them. So yeah, of course they didn't, like, show up, and of course you didn't see them, because we were beating the fuck out of them. And then we stopped that for a moment, and guess what? All the trans people who were always trans suddenly started acting like trans people. And then you get to stand around and be like, where are they all coming from? The internet is surely to blame. And so this was my take. I lost subscribers, was banned from a place. Like, I expect it. And I expected it with the QAnon thing too. I bleed people. I bleed. Like it's a constant like up and then bleed and then up and then bleed. Like there are spike ups and then steady bleeds and then spike ups and then steady bleeds. The worst is that when I go through periods where there's no spike up and then it's just a steady bleed. And I also don't take some of that personally. Like here's another aspect of that is that, it's Friday. I can talk about what I want. I'm going to talk about myself in this channel. I also don't take some of that personally. Like some of it, I think, is just people dropping off YouTube, right? Just like they're not actively going, no, unsub this guy, fuck this guy. They're literally just like not part of YouTube anymore, right? I think that's probably part of it as well. My dog, he wants the peanut butter. Misty, how you doing, Misty? Good to see you. Way off topic, but are you familiar with Jonathan Colton? You reminded him of your sense of humor is a lot like his. This is a compliment I start with, and I'll take it as a compliment. We both our names are Jonathan, both of us. So of course, like we're both Jonathans. We must be brilliant. I don't know who Jonathan Colton is. Jonathan, apparently. Jonathan Colton. Jonathan. Nope, don't know who this guy is. It's the hair, and I got the beard thing, and I play guitar. We could be like brothers. Yeah. I get it. I see it. And he's very handsome. Oh, I love this. New president appoints Marxist as prime minister. So this is in Peru. A day after being sworn in as Peru's president, Pedro Castillo has appointed a far-left lawmaker and member of his Marxist party, Guaido Bellido, as prime minister, ending expectations of a moderate government. I actually feel like, beginning nearly 3 hours late, Castillo swore in an incomplete cabinet on Thursday night that included several figures from the far left and only 2 women. He did not appoint a finance minister. And I actually think this was done in like defiance. Are they going to report on that? Where he actually straight out was like, people were saying like, yeah, you should do a centrist. You should focus on a centrist. Oh, you better focus on a centrist. Uh-oh. Okay, guys, sorry. I got to pause. Do I have a video ready? My dog is getting caught in the reverse sneezing thing, and I got to help him. Okay, guys, you're going to get a chair stream for a little bit. Sorry, one moment. Okay, buddy. You need some cheese? Okay, buddy. You're a good boy. I know, buddy. I know, buddy. I know. What a dumb thing that happens to your stupid little face. Okay, let's give people a show. Come here, buddy. Okay, we're going to give you a bit of a show. I think I'm in panel here. Okay, sit. What a good little boy. There's a good little boy. I know. In your own time. Good boy. Take it. Good boy. I know, that was a big piece. Got another one here for you. Oh, good boy. Okay, that's a lot of cheese. I'm going to have some of this cheese myself. No. Okay, buddy. There you go. High five. What a good little boy. There you go, buddy. Good boy, buddy. Good boy. I love you too. Good boy. Good boy, buddy. Good boy. Hey, buddy, do you want to come up on the lap? I think people would like to say hi. You want to come up? Here. You going to grumble at me? Oh, I know. I know, grumble, grumble. Grumble, grumble. Grumble, grumble. Okay. Sorry about that, guys. Little guy, I don't know if you know this about pugs. Hi, little pug show. It's the pug show. It's the pug show. Milo and pugs in general, the reduced snout that they have, like the snout, it means that their palate is further back in their throat, and so they can start choking on their hard palate, and it creates this kind of like reverse sort of sneezing effect, and they get caught in like a loop. And one of the ways that you can get them out of it is if you give them a little treat, and then they swallow, and then the swallow stops it from happening. And of course, Milo's favorite treat is cheese, and so he goes to town on cheese. Okay, and we're coming back. We're coming back. Oh, he wrote the Portal song? Still alive? Oh, well, then I love him. Aperture Science. We're doing our best because we can. For the good of all of us, except the ones who are dead. And there's no use crying over every mistake. We'll just keep on trying 'cause we run out of cake. And there's something to be done, and we'll make a big gun for the people who are still alive. I love book learning, but most people leave school or college and decide they've learned all they need to. Yeah, that's something that sucks about getting older. Everyone your age has stopped exploring new things. Yeah. A walking version of sleep apnea is what. Yeah, that's kind of true, isn't it? That's kind of true. Yeah, you little sweetheart. Oh, I know. Okay, you want down, buddy? Is that what this is about? He wants down. Mwah. Thanks for coming, buddy. Thanks for coming. And down you go, buddy. Whoop. Good boy. Good boy, buddy. All right. And then, of course, every single time, not every single time, but quite often after I do this, then he goes and throws it all up right on the carpet. It's like, oh, come on, dude. Okay, we're back. I love this. Mike Pompeo. We admire the Chinese people, but loathe their oppressors. It's like, you get, Mike Pompeo, that you are their oppressors, right? Like, you understand that that's what's happening. But he doesn't. It's that classic, like, we like the Chinese people, but we hate their government. And I'm like, but the Chinese people are actually in favor of their government. Like, Harvard did a study, a 20-year study of Chinese and the Chinese opinion, right? And they found that not only were people in favor of their government, that over time people were becoming more in favor of their government. So, like, when you say that, oh, I'm in favor of the Chinese people, but I'm against the Chinese government, you really, like, it's a contradiction in terms. Like, and it's bullshit, and we know it's bullshit, right? It doesn't fucking make any sense at all. Channel 4 News, exclusive. The Science Museum has signed a gagging clause in its agreement with Shell International to sponsor its climate change exhibition, agreeing to take care not to say anything that could damage the company's reputation, Channel 4 News has learned. So literally, the Science Museum is in an agreement with Shell International, and they can't say anything bad about Shell. Which, I mean, the CEOs of Shell should be arrested. The shareholders for Shell should be arrested. They should be put on trial. We should have a Hague. I even go so far to say that if you are... I will not take the climate change... Bleh. I will not believe that our political system is beginning to take climate change seriously until the CEOs of ExxonMobil, Shell, BP Oil, all these guys are in prison. I don't mean arrested. I don't mean fined. I don't mean investigated. I mean in prison. And until that happens, I don't believe we're taking climate change seriously at all. And I mean at all. Like, I think that it's all baby talk. I think that it's all just like trying to convince us with dangling keys and dumb bullshit. Until the CEOs of Shell International, BP, ExxonMobil are in jail, we're not taking climate change seriously at all. We're still in babyland. Oh yeah, this sculpture is called Politicians Discussing Global Warming. I think this is a beautiful sculpture that should be like shown to everyone all the time because it's the truth. Like, these guys are not actually going to do anything. Like, the conservatives and liberals aren't going to do anything serious with climate change. It's just not going to happen. It's not on the table. Like, when they get together and they discuss, like, what are they doing, what policy measures, all that kind of stuff, they're not interested in climate change. Like, they'll throw little tokens at it. They'll have somebody do a little speech or something, but they're not interested. They don't give a fuck. Like, they don't care at all. I know. I love this. Bruh, the economy isn't even real. We literally fucking made it up. Just let people have food. What the fuck? I was born into this dumb fucking world against my will, and now my life gets affected by whether line go up or down. People starve because of weird, sad fantasy line. Grow up. Yep. Here's someone that's getting it. Here's someone that's getting it. Hey DJ, how you doing? Yeah, they're too busy discussing the cost of it in monetary value because they're caught in the absurd belief system that money is real, right? They're caught in the absurd belief system that, like, money is something other than what it is, which is like an imagined tool that we have created in order to just measure our activity. That's what money actually is. That, like, money exists as a tool to measure our activity and to kind of say what can and cannot be done, right? That, like, my dog is just, like, looking right at me with, like, looking right over his Kong and being like, give me more peanut butter. I'm like, dude, you've had lots of peanut butter. You've had lots of peanut butter. You're okay. And, but money's not real. Like, it's not like our government can literally create it and destroy it at will. Like, it is just a manifestation of our imagination, right? And that the idea that we're willing to let people starve or be homeless for money is just like that. That's akin to a belief in Santa Claus, in my perspective. Like, imagine if you did or did not get food based on your belief in whether or not Santa Claus was real. It's the same story with money. It's the same thing. And it's especially now that it's pooled underneath so many people. Like, it's so much has pooled underneath people, right? Now you're talking about a literal situation where, like, if we just took the money that billionaires have, right, and didn't even reduce it by enough to make them not a billionaire, right, we could accomplish so much, but without reducing the quality of life whatsoever of the billionaires. So, like, it's just become this, like, childish game of who can exploit the populace the most. That's really what it is. Oh yeah, I like this one. Fuck off, company. When those things get wheels. I think my favorite part about this is everyone's smiling. Like, they got fire, and, like, they're bringing in the guillotine, and they're like, oh, yay. Today's the day that we get our society back. Yeah, you're exactly right about this, DM. That the housing market is now a speculative gambling game by the extreme rich sociopaths. That's exactly right. That's exactly what it is. Like, there's no genuine compassion or empathy or acknowledgement that housing should be for people to live in. None of that matters. It doesn't matter to these guys at all. Oh, Caitlin Johnstone. Absolutely love Caitlin Johnstone. Her articles are always extremely good. Just throw sand in the gears of the machine and try to wake people up in whichever way you can. No one person can win this, but we can each shine a bit more light on things for others and make life a bit harder for the bastards. You can't do everything, but you can do your bit. Oh, I know. I'm like, this is really what it is. Like, I mean, it's what I've been saying. Like, we need to stop participating, but, like, something's got to give here, man. Like, this machine needs to break, because if we don't break the machine breaks us. It's very clear. And I think you got to be like a detached sort of person to not really get it. Oh, here's a great one, right? Death rate from malnutrition, 1990 to 2017. Here's the increase of the death rate due to malnutrition in the United States going on up, right? Going on up. What's this? Vietnam? Oh, funny how that works, eh? Funny how that works. Like, we are building bombs and bombing people. We are recovering from being bombed. Like, very clear, very obvious. Like, how is this anything but a complete repudiation of the capitalist system? Like, hey, malnutrition is going up. And it's going up in sharp ways, right? Meanwhile, communist societies, malnutrition is in decline. Like, what do you need? Like, what do you need at this point? What information do you need to be convinced that capitalism has failed? This comes from Richard Medhurst, who I really like. Richard Medhurst, he's reporting, I believe he reports, if not from Syria, he's in the Middle East. I forget exactly where he's reporting from. He's very, very outspoken when the Biden administration censored the media throughout the Middle East. Marco Rubio is correct when he says it's easier to control people once they're forced into poverty. That's why the United States has the poor draft. Deny people health care and college so you can lure them into the military as imperialist mercenaries for the weapons industry. Yep. Like, I actually do believe, like, the number one reason why the United States is denying their citizens health care and college is specifically for this reason. Because one of the only ways for poor people to become educated, one of the only ways for poor people to get access to healthcare is the military. And if you provide those things because, you know, you're a rational and just society, then people are far less likely to join the military, especially as the military is going on and doing this and is acting like the Nazis on the world stage. Like, I don't think it can be debated at this point, right? Like, the United States are the Nazis on the world stage. Like, what's the counter argument to this now? I've actually never seen this. This is something that's really interesting to me. I would love to see a debate between anybody, right? Any like leftist, like Jimmy Dore, Sam Cedar, anybody, versus, I don't know, Ben Shapiro, Steven Crowder, like any of these guys, and the subject of it being the United States are the Nazis on the world stage. Like, they're the fascists. It's very clear, like, that they're destroying the entire Middle East. They're destroying all this place. What's the justification for this to continue? Like, what? And sometimes you do hear, and the justifications are things like, well, if the United States didn't do it, somebody else would. And it's literally like, so your imagination, like your imagined perspective of what the rest of the world would do, outweighs and supersedes what's actually happening in the world. And this is something that I'm confronting a lot in what's going on in the conversation today. That these right-wingers, and even people I would consider kind of centrists, their imagined vision of what the world may look like supersedes the reality of what's going on. Like, anytime I hear someone like Joe Rogan talk about the basic income, he can't help but say, yeah, but, you know, if people have food and shelter taken care of, then, you know, they'll lose their sense of meaning, and that'll spread despair. And it's like, dude, that's just imagined bullshit that you're just imagining. So, like, your imagination, the imagined world that will come out of ameliorating homelessness and poverty is worse than actual homelessness and poverty, which actually exists in the world. And this kind of speaks to the high-level arrogance that exists in, like, the neoliberal fascist culture that exists right now. That literally we can see people living in despair. We can see it in front of us. And yet our imagination, what we imagine might happen if we ameliorate that, is worse to us than what's actually in front of us. Like, this is kind of the high level of delusion that we're willing to accept in our society. That like, really imagine like what Joe Rogan and like Jordan Peterson and all these right wingers are saying when they say that, oh, people will lose their meaning and that'll spread despair. That their legitimate position is, if you eliminate homelessness and if you eliminate hunger and if you eliminate poverty, that will spread misery. I genuinely think you have to be stupid to believe this. Like, I genuinely think you have to, like, there has to be something fundamentally wrong with your thinking pattern to actually believe that eliminating homelessness, eliminating poverty, eliminating starvation will spread suffering. Like, yeah, will people struggle with meaning? Sure, but they're supposed to. That's what people are supposed to do. And the idea that they'll somehow not be able to manage it is a grotesque insult to people. It's I actually preferred it when they were saying we'd be lazy, right? Like, telling people that they won't be able to find their own meaning is like a grotesque insult, like a demonic insult to a person. I've never met a single person that wasn't attempting to find meaning. And so again, it's this situation where these right wingers are elevating their own imagination and their own contemplation of what the world might look like above the reality of what the world actually is. And again, it's like this elevation of childishness, that we're supposed to take seriously these child men that have never grown up, and this childish sort of position that someone struggling to find their meaning is worse than someone living on the fucking street. Like, think about that these people are actively saying, no, we can't ameliorate homelessness because it's worse to see somebody struggle to find their own meaning. Like, what the fuck is wrong with you? Like, why do you, what mental block do you have in your mind that is preventing you from understanding in a very basic way that ameliorating homelessness and ameliorating poverty and ameliorating hunger is a good thing to do? Have you noticed how, like, all the religious icons that we've ever created in our existence as humans have always said, hey, ameliorate homelessness and poverty and suffering, give your money to the poor? Have you noticed that all of them are saying that? And then you're turning around and saying to, like, Jesus Christ and Gandhi, yeah, but then people will struggle to find their meaning. Which is, like, the most bullshit insult I've ever heard in my fucking life. Like, concern noted, but sorry, your opinion of whether or not someone will be able to find their meaning does not supersede their need for food and shelter. So noted, but respectfully, go fuck yourselves. Ugh. Oh yeah, 14,000 scientists warn of untold suffering if we fail to act on climate change. Like, what is it going to take, man? Like, what is it going to take? There are some phrases that should stop you in your tracks. The warning of a future that holds untold suffering is one of them. That exactly what scientists from around the world are cautioning will happen if we don't take the threat of climate change seriously. In a paper published Wednesday in the journal Bioscience, more than 14,000 scientists from 153 countries signed their name to research that warns of an upcoming climate emergency. Like, as if we're not already in an emergency. The paper, led by researchers from Oregon State University, uses 31 different planetary variables that tell us how Earth is holding up in the face of humanity's insistence on draining natural resources and pumping greenhouse gases into the atmosphere. Like, at what point does this become a national security issue? Like, why are we not treating this like a national security issue? Where are the generals? Where are the admirals? Where are the people in the military why is no one in the military standing up and saying, this is a national security issue and it needs to be treated like a national security issue? Like, where are these people? Why is it that our military is failing us so dramatically? Why is it? Like, I understand why our leadership, like why our elected leadership is failing us so dramatically, but why is our military failing us so dramatically? Their job is to protect us from outside threats. That's their entire job. And they're failing us completely. They're failing us in major dramatic ways. Where is the military leadership standing up and saying, this is a major, major crisis. This is a national security issue, and we have to do something about it. That's what I want to know. Like, I understand that these politicians are corrupt and have been bought and all that bullshit. I get that. But our military leadership is our military leadership. Like, what's going on? What's happening? Have we been abandoned by them as well? It seems like. Yeah, what's it going to take? A full-scale crisis like a food shortage, power outages. But even then, they'll just retreat into their gated communities, right? Sunspots will shut down the power generators. Capitalists won't even build grids to prevent such outages. Yeah, because they'll have their own personal grids and their own personal outages, and they'll say insipid, pathetic things like, well, you should have built your own grid, right? Individualism, right? Every man for themselves. Let chaos reign. Like, these guys are like chaos death knights. They genuinely believe that we should abandon one another, and that's the way to make a civil society. Like, it's grotesque. And like, at this stage in the game, I'm just like, this is why I say, like, we need to have large-scale tribunals and arrest the CEOs of oil companies. And why, until we see that happen, we shouldn't believe that our leadership is actually interested in ameliorating climate change at all, right? Until we actually see people arrested and imprisoned, we shouldn't believe that climate change is being dealt with seriously at all. And that's what it's going to take. Like, it is going to take that kind of thing. And I'm talking about, like, at this stage in the game, I'm talking about, like, our military leadership, too. Like, why have they abandoned us? Like, their entire job is to protect us. That's the reason they exist. Where are they? Where are they? So while we're prosecuting the heads of BP and Exxon and Shell, we should be prosecuting our admirals and generals as well. And we should be saying, why did you fail to protect us from this large-scale existential threat? What's with this overt and obvious abandonment and failure from our military? Right? It's your job. It's your only job. It's the only thing you do. It's the only thing you do. Where are you? Nowhere? Oh, get the fuck out of here then. Yeah, how does it make you and your family feel knowing Congress is about to depart for a 7-week paid vacation in the midst of a global pandemic after letting an eviction moratorium end while new variants run wild and it's still $7.25 an hour? Like, are we going to begin to understand that we've been abandoned? That it's abandonment, right? That it's abandonment. Like, that's what we're experiencing, is wholesale, full scale, in every department, without fail. Abandonment. We've been abandoned by the financial sector. We've been abandoned by the capitalist sector, certainly. We've been abandoned by the political sector. We've been abandoned by the military sector. There isn't a single sector that is actually aligning itself to help anybody, that's actually aligning itself to deal with these crises that are unfolding. Literally, no one is doing it. And what is going to happen is, as these crises come to fruition, they are just going to retreat into their gated communities and just watch us die. That's what's going to happen. And we're just going to let it happen, apparently. Because we're just going to vote conservative, vote liberal like a pack of gullible morons. Because we're too stupid to figure out that these guys have already abandoned us. And we're just going to watch it happen. And then, like, people like me, like, I'm running out of compassion. Right? I'm running out of compassion. Like, the boomers and these people voting liberal and all this kind of stuff, they're going to come crying to me, and I'm just going to be like, get fucked. Like, get fucked. I don't know what to say anymore to these people. Like, your society is literally abandoning you, literally abandoning you in serious ways, and you're just going to check liberal, check conservative. Yeah, this is a great idea. Like, no. If that's your position, just don't vote. Like, do us all a favor, and if your position is literally, I'm going to vote conservative, I'm going to vote liberal, just don't vote. Just don't come out, right? Because you're obviously so stupid and incompetent and so gullible and incapable of understanding the scale and monstrosity of what's happening directly in front of your face that you should just sit down and let adults take over, right? Like, if you're so incapable of making rational decisions for you and your family, then you should just sit down and no longer participate. And, like, stop pretending, but if you are going to go vote liberal and conservative, stop pretending like you give a shit about your own family. Stop pretending like you care about your children. Stop pretending that you actually give a fuck about any of these family values or any of this kind of stuff, because you don't. You don't give a fuck about your own family. You don't give a fuck about your own children, certainly. You don't give a fuck about their future. You don't give a fuck about them even a tiny little bit. That it is all about your own selfishness and your own desire to be comfortable. You don't give a fuck if this place blows up after you die. Like, you don't give a fuck if this place blows up after you die. Stop pretending. Stop pretending like you care about morality. Stop caring that you care about ethics. Stop pretending to care that you care about any of this stuff. The only thing you care about is your big truck or your nice house, or and that you can get your fucking buck of beer and all that shit. Stop pretending you give a fuck about anybody, because you don't. It's very obvious that you don't. So if you're going to walk in front of me and start pretending like you have any moral high ground and start pretending like you're even capable of talking, like, you're dumber than a QAnon person, right? Like, you're dumber than QAnon. Stop pretending. And like, stop pretending like you give a fuck about your kids. I don't understand. Like, you've had these kids, right? And clearly it was just done so that you can jerk off and be like, yeah, I had kids, I'm the greatest. Right? But you don't give a fuck about them. They're going to die to a climate change apocalypse of your creation, and you don't give a fuck. Obviously. So stop pretending, and stop wasting my time with it. Stop voting. Stop voting liberals. Stop voting conservative, certainly. And if you can't stomach voting any other option, then just stop voting. Or do me the favor and just embrace the fact that you're an evil psychopath. Because that's what you are. Obviously. Like, obviously. Yeesh. Yeah, the public are treated as servants, but we don't have to be. Yeah, military are obeying the chain of command. We should have been, and we are. Like, this is the thing. Like, Joe Biden had to, like, double the recruitment budget for the police forces throughout the United States, right? And why does he have to do that? Because people are not joining in. People are seeing the police for what they are, which is an overt fascist police state. Like, and it's overt at this point. If you're joining the police, it's because you want to kill people. That's what you want to do, right? That you're not joining the police force to serve and protect anybody. You're not joining the police force because you want to maintain order. You're not joining the police force because you want to do your civic duty. You're joining the police force because you get to kill black people. That's what being a police officer means in the United States. And it's not that much different in Canada. That if you're joining the police forces, it's because you get to take a baton and crack someone over the head, and you get to get away with it. That's why you're a police officer. And if you are a police officer, or you know police officers, and you hear me say that, and you disagree, then you're fucking deluded. It's very, very obvious that you are joining the police forces in order to kill and maim people of color. That's what you are there to do. And lots of people in the United States and Canada are starting to realize, lots of police are starting to realize that that is the job, right? So there's lots of people who are leaving the police forces because they're realizing that is the job, actually. That's what I'm here to do, and they're leaving. But I actually think it's more that, these people of color are actually starting to fight back. I didn't sign up for a war. I signed up to suppress and oppress and kill these guys. I didn't sign up for them to fight back. Right? And so now that they're fighting back, too bad, I'm going to leave. Right? So you're seeing high rates of retirement throughout the United States, and you're seeing less and less people join up because the type of people who typically join the police forces, i.e. sociopathic cowards, can no longer just actively murder these people without them fighting back. And so Joe Biden has doubled the budget of the police force and of the recruitment of the police force, and we'll see what that happens, right? But the reality is like these enterprises, the military industrial complex, like if people just don't join, it doesn't work, right? It doesn't function. And once you recognize that when you're joining up with the United States military, you are joining the Nazis. That's what you are doing. And once you realize that you're joining the police force, you are joining the Nazis. That's what you are doing. It is a black and white issue at this point. And if you're sitting there being like, no, John, you're so hyper, you're being well, then you need to shut the fuck up. Because you either don't know what you're talking about, or you're simply arguing because you want them to be Nazis, and you want there to be a Nazi force in our society. And of course I'm saying Nazi with like hyperbolically. Like, don't come at me with this like, oh, no, technically, John, I don't give a fuck about that at all. These people are an oppressive, suppressive, fascist force who explicitly exist to do damage to people of color. That's what they exist for. That's their role in the society. That's the reason why we say we should defund these guys, because I don't understand why we're funding a fascist organization that exists to assault us. It seems counterintuitive to me. And unless you realize that we're like a pretend fake society, right? We're that parody society. We're not a real society. We're like a joke society. We're a society that somebody would make up as a joke. The U.S. Congress is a joke. Yeah, Nancy Pelosi needs to eat her 5,000 ice cream bar in prison. Yeah, man, capitalism has obviously failed, and it's showing. I think it's either like 62 or 72 people have more wealth than most people on Earth. It's truly mind-blowing. Yeah, like, it's hideous. The January 6th insurrection was not about Donald Trump. The populace was showing their frustration against a government who has fully abandoned them during a pandemic. Yeah. I watched this documentary on climate change. I think you mean climate change there, DJ, but that's good. On climate change last night. I think it would be good to check out. I'll post it in the Discord. I think it shows some effects of what will happen when climate change happens. Yeah, constables make $150K. Yeah. The job is to suppress and incarcerate primarily people of color, so the military prison complex has legalized slave labor, and that's part of it too, Mach. You're right on the money with that. Like, there was a statement that was actually made. Lawyers defended they don't want to legalize marijuana because legalizing marijuana will make it more difficult to incarcerate people to put into this slave system. And that's what it is. Like, the prison system is a slave system. And again, I feel like if you're defending that, like, time to sit down, dude. Time to stop participating. It's like really obvious. Yeah, I think I see a pattern here. Chinese Vice Foreign Minister Xi Feng urged the U.S. to change its highly misguided mindset and dangerous policy. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov described U.S. policy on Russia as deadlocked and even dumb. Iranian Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei on Wednesday said the U.S. was stubborn in its demands of Iran. Like, oh, that's a great way of saying it. Another grim capitalist achievement. Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting, eh? The United States can't build anything except fucking bombs, walls, and prisons. Like, it's kind of staggering. Like, it's impressive in its obtuseness. Like, it's impressive how absolutely obtuse this place is. This pretend society. Yeah, climate tipping points are difficult to predict. In Canada and beyond, they may have already arrived. I mean, what is my stance on drugs? Should they all be legalized or only certain ones? I believe that you should always follow evidence, that evidence is the only thing that should decide your position, and the evidence is in You should legalize all drugs. That it is not a moral position. If you have a moral position on drugs, you are wrong. Full stop. Period. That if you want people to do less drugs, you should legalize all drugs. If you want people to be able to do drugs, but do them safely, you should legalize all drugs. You should, if you want to reach out and help people who are on drugs, you should legalize all drugs. If you want to destroy drug cartels, you should legalize all drugs. If you want to cut down and see less crime, you should legalize all drugs. There is not one single position that you can take where criminalizing drugs works. There is no position to take. The only position that you can take while defending the criminalization of drugs is that you want to spread suffering and cause as much harm as you can to your populace. That's the only position that you are allowed to take to be in favor of the criminalization of drugs. Full stop. And that's based completely in the evidence. There's no evidence suggesting anything other than that. So you're saying they should legalize all drugs? DM, I'm glad that you cottoned on to that. I was worried that you weren't going to put that one together, but I'm glad it came through. Yeah, concentration camps too. Let's not forget that. Oh yeah, the concentration camp system that exists in the United States is unbelievable. Like ICE is literally the Nazis. Like they literally are kicking in doors, kidnapping minority groups, incarcerating them in concentration camps. Oh yeah, and it's a complete waste of resources, Misty. That's exactly right. Not to mention the incredible overcrowding of the jails and prisons with drug crimes. What a waste of resources. It's a complete waste of resources. But this is why I call this society a pretend society. We're not doing anything. We're not doing anything productive at all. There's not one thing that we're doing that I would consider productive even a little bit, right? And the things that we're heading towards that you could argue are productive, the capitalists are coming in and just wedging themselves in and just collapsing these systems in idiotic and obtuse ways. Like we're a pretend society. Like we're just a joke. Like we're not real. We're not interested in being real. We're not interested in actually being a society. Like we just have like the appearance of being one. Prison changes and destroys people. It should be reserved for those who truly deserve it, like Jeff Bezos. Well, and there's big arguments as to like, does this prison system even work in its base intention? Like, literally the prison system exists. Here's the origin of the prison system. This is how stupid it is. It was created by monks. People didn't know what to do with these criminals. Right? So the idea was that we would take people, separate them from the society, put them in like a little cell, right? And allow them to find penance, right? So penitentiary penance, right? Like that's where the word comes from. And the original idea was that you would actually bind their hands together, right? You'd bind their hands together and then surround them in cloth so they couldn't even grab anything or do anything. And you would put a hood over their head so they'd live their life in total darkness and be unable to actually interact with the world around them. And once they realized the obvious conclusion of what that would do, which was drive people fucking insane, they got rid of the bindings and all this, but they kept them in the cell. And this was done by like 16th, 17th century monks, and the system just gets adopted, and it's what we use, it's what we do. But there's very little evidence to show that this is effective, right? And there are other ways of dealing with people who are involved in crime. So one of the theories around crime is that, well, the reason why a person is doing crime is because the environment around them has led them into that path, right? So, like, our pretend society thrusts people into poverty, giving them no other option than to turn to crime. Like, what do you think's going to happen? But even still, like, and so there are some societies throughout history who have said, oh, okay, so if somebody's like doing crime over here, the environment around them has created a situation for them to do crime. So let's remove them from that. But instead of throwing them into a jail or something, we'll just put them in a different place. Just completely disconnect them completely. And you find that these people generally do well. The U.S. prison system it doesn't need to be reformed, it needs to be abolished. It needs to be burnt down to the ground. Like, it doesn't exist to do what it says it's there to do. Like, it's not there to reform people. It's not there to create, to protect anybody. It's not there for any of that. It's a slave system. That's what it is. And like, most of the negative outcomes that it pretends to ameliorate, you could ameliorate more effectively with far less money and far less difficulty. Yet rehabilitation and reintegration greater than punishment and criminalization. The problem is that fascism is very popular. That's the big problem, near as I see it. Which is why it's so difficult to actually move the bar to the left, is because fascism is quite popular. That people, like Macht has said here, rehabilitation and reintegration is greater than punishment and criminalization, but huge swaths of the United States want punishment and criminalization, right? Because fascism is popular. They want these people to suffer. They want them to live in pain. That's what they want. And my thing has steadily become, I just wish they'd stop pretending, right? I just wish they'd stop pretending. Like, I think I would prefer it if they would actually just be fascists. You know, it would be easier. It'd be easier, but they can't do that, right? They can't just come out and stop pretending like they're not fascists, because then people who aren't fascists, but who believe in a fascist ideology, or who have been duped into believing that fascism is an acceptable thing to believe, will suddenly be like, oh shit, this is fascism, and they'll stop. So they've got to kind of pretend, right? And I'm hoping, I had this Stephen Harper clip. This would be a great time. Did I just fucking close it? I think I might have. Yeah, sucks. This is the full interview with Stephen Harper. But I might want to create my own video with that. Anyway. Yeah, here's a great idea. Nationalize Amazon and merge it with the U.S. Post Office, where workers are paid at least a living wage plus benefits. Yeah. Oh yeah, the fact that Harper, like, I will say one thing. So Stephen Harper, I was very surprised to see Stephen Harper use the term woke. I was very, very surprised to see former Prime Minister Stephen Harper say the word woke and call the left woke. Because woke has become a fascist dog whistle. That if you are seeing a commentator use the phrase woke as a pejorative, which is how they're using it, it's the same as how they called communist tankies, right? It's the same as saying like cultural Marxism, right? That these are fascist dog whistles. That when you say woke, the fascists in your organization understand that everything that follows this is said in a fascist framework, and that it's well understood. Like, this is the reason why they stopped. Like, Peterson was walking around saying cultural Marxism as a critique of Marxists, which he's illiterate on. He doesn't know anything about Marxism, but he was saying the phrase cultural Marxism. But the Marxists, who are literate, certainly more than he is, were very quick to point out that the phrase cultural Marxism was used by the Nazis. Like, that was one of the Nazi propaganda phrases that was used. And so so they've shifted away from cultural Marxism, and now they've adopted the woke has become what it is. And this is a fascist dog whistle. That the only people who are walking around using the word woke are far-right fascists and white supremacists. And I've seen commentators use the word woke, but not as a pejorative, right? They've just been commenting on like the culture that they're seeing, and that's one thing. But to see Stephen Harper actually use woke as a pejorative really tells me that the fascist, like white supremacist movement here in Canada has gotten a lot deeper than I thought. Like, I didn't realize that it was like literally former Prime Minister Stephen Harper using fascist dog whistles. Like, that means that it's gotten quite deep, and that means that fascism is much more popular than I thought it was here in Canada. To see like a former Prime Minister say that, and then for him to call the left nihilist, like, is a total fucking joke. It's that it's a classic maneuver. Take the thing that you are most guilty of, and accuse your opponent of it. Right? It's classic, and so he's, because there's no other, like, who is possibly more nihilist than the evangelical Christians, of which Stephen Harper is a part of. Who could possibly be more nihilistic than these guys? Like, all of their music is entrenched, and all of their teachings and preachings are entrenched in the idea that things will be so much better when we're dead. Like, it doesn't get more nihilistic than this. And what's the nihilism that he's seeing? Is it the desire that we actually fight for an environment that doesn't destroy us? Like, I actually think it's the opposite, DM. I don't think that Harper's taking notes from Rex Murphy. I think Rex Murphy's taking notes from Harper. Right? Like, don't underestimate how powerful and respected Stephen Harper is within the Conservative Party still. Right? Like, all of the, like, we are witnessing the remnants of Stephen Harper's party. Right? That Andrew Scheer and Aaron O'Toole were both Harper toadies. Both of them worked for the Harper administration, right? And the idea that Stephen Harper is not talking to these guys, I think, is silly. And obviously Rex Murphy as well. Well, religion itself is not nihilistic, but certainly these evangelicals are, right? Certainly these evangelicals are. Right? Like, what are they doing? They're walking around saying, like, yeah, everything will be better when we're dead. Right? We'll go to heaven and meet Jesus. It doesn't get more nihilistic than that. That is nihilism. Like, it's black and white nihilistic. That, like, yeah, we don't need to pay attention to what's going on in the world today, and we don't need to help people and heal their suffering because everything will be better when we're dead. Like, yikes. And then for Stephen Harper to turn around and say, that the left is nihilistic, while the left is literally fighting for a sustainable future, like, I think the only people who could absolutely believe that are just deluded losers like him. And that's all he is. Like, he's just a deluded loser at this point, right? He managed to get a majority government once, immediately got kicked out by fucking a walking haircut, and hasn't been able to seize power ever since, because people see through him and they understand he's a loser. Understand why people mispronounce nihilist, because it's so common, but it's nihilist. Really? Like we are the knights who say ni, or nihilist. I don't know what N-E with the like little thing above it is in terms of pronunciation. Is it nihilist? Like I have a knee? Nihilist? Nihilist? No, not hilist, certainly. But anyway. I mean, I'm sure you would know better than I would, bud. It means annihilation. And like, and this is the other thing, like, the only reason he's saying that the movement is nihilist is because it's destroying things it's destroying white supremacy, right? Like, that's what it is. That a guy like Harper sees the destruction of white supremacy as the same as the destruction of Western civilization, right? So that's where he's, and if you're a white supremacist like he obviously is, then you can pretend as though that's an act of nihilism. Like, I just, it's so unfortunate to watch someone discredit themselves so thoroughly, right? Like, and I feel like I'm going to watch the full interview. I haven't watched the full interview yet. And I've seen a lot of Stephen Harper's interviews. Like, Stephen Harper doesn't have a lot of interviews, right? Like, Stephen Harper maybe does one interview, like, annually, like one interview a year. And my opinion of him has been, like, I don't necessarily agree with him, but it's been that he is more or less interested in rationality, even though he's an evangelical and all that. But this time around, I think it really is the case that it's full-blown fascism at this point. That we're no longer interested in pretending. We're seeing that us pretending not to be fascists is working, and so now we're just going to be fascists. And maybe being fascists will work, because everything else has failed. And it really is just like this sacrifice of any moral or ethical or rational position to this desperate plunge for power. I didn't realize he had an interview with Ben Shapiro. Oh my God, really? Stephen Harper had an interview with Ben Shapiro? Stephen Harper, Ben Shapiro. Really? No kidding. That one went under my radar. That one went under my radar. I'm going to check that out.
We are Democrats, is that how people think and feel and react actually matters as opposed to just our blueprint view of the world.
Yeah, we'll see. But this is what I'm saying. Like, I suspect I'm even going to watch this one, and I'm going to be like, yeah, he seems kind of rational, right? Like, because he always has seemed that way. And it's not, and like, I've said outright, Stephen Harper was a better prime minister than Justin Trudeau, right? We got the childcare benefit because of Stephen Harper. Something that he doesn't really tout or talk about, which I think it's because his base would hate it. But that's the truth. Like, we got the childcare benefit because of Stephen Harper. What's Trudeau done? Right? Giving us some, like, temporary thing in the middle of a fucking pandemic, sure. But, like, Canadian immigrants vote Conservative. I actually think that that's actually inaccurate. Canadian immigrants vote Liberal. Or more specifically, Canadian immigrants vote for whoever is in power. Because if you're an immigrant and you're coming into a country, the last thing you want to do is rock the boat. You're not interested in rocking the boat. You're interested in seeing, okay, who's in power, and especially who's responsible for my immigration, right? Like, if I'm an immigrant, I'm going to come on in and I'm just going to look around and be like, who's everybody voting for? You're voting for that? Okay. I don't think they're taking a very hard line or a very, like, although I have seen conservatives say outright that, like, lots of immigrants, they, like, ally on social issues, right? I think that's fairly common. So, anyway. I'm probably going to make a video over this weekend about Stephen Harper's interview because it's just so outrageous. So this is from the Toronto Star. A fourth wave of COVID could fundamentally divide Ontarians, as if we haven't been fundamentally divided already. But yeah, like, as this crisis continues to hit us over and over and over again, like, people are going to get exhausted. People are going to get done with it, right? And people are going to get done with this society that kind of perpetually creates these crises, this, like, fake pretend society, right? And our inability to actually resolve this issue in a serious way. And so, yeah, obviously the society is going to get divided. And hopefully it gets divided between people who understand that capitalism has failed and people who understand that, and people who have deluded themselves into thinking capitalism is still working. Yeah, I won't be surprised to see it. Well, and capitalism cannot miss Christmas. Like, it can't. If we have to shut down, like the last time we went over Christmas, we should have shut down. Like, we absolutely should have shut down. But capitalism can't do that. Can't shut capitalism down over Christmas. It would actually kill capitalism. It would be the end of corporate capitalism if you shut down over Christmas. And we definitely should. And like, they're just gonna shove kids back into schools. They're gonna do everything they can, right? They're gonna do everything they can. And of course, this is coming because we've seen an uptick in the United States and the UK, right? So it's like perfectly predictable. But like, and again, what's frustrating? Yeah, exactly. But the homeless nurses need to be kept working for scraps. Capitalism, baby. Yeah, and like it's really, really annoying that people keep talking about what we've done as if it's been a lockdown. We have never actually done a real lockdown. It's never actually happened. We've done this like halvesies bullshit, like where we've done a whole lot of concession to the capitalists so that they can, you know, keep getting their fucking timmies or whatever. And we've never done a proper lockdown. That's never actually happened. And yet people are so like, oh, I'm so exhausted with lockdowns. It's like, you've never experienced a lockdown. What you're exhausted with is capitalism pretending to lock down, right? I think an actual lockdown people wouldn't mind so much, right? Everybody just stay home, chill out, watch Netflix, eat some fucking ice cream, spend time with your family, right? Just chill the fuck out. Let it pass. Can't do that, though. Not sure if you heard of that. I bet you you put up a comment that got deleted, yeah, bud? Disgusting. I almost guarantee you got a comment deleted there, bud. For some reason, I just realized the rich will always keep poor people straggling behind them on purpose. They need a working class to be rich. Yeah. Like, the reason you're rich is because someone else is poor. That's outright what's going on. Like, you're rich because someone else is poor. And like, it's weird to hear the defenders of capitalism talk about capitalism as if capitalism is generating wealth. It's like, no, capitalism is relocating wealth. Like, when you go into South America and steal a bunch of resources and bring them back home, that's not generating wealth. That's reallocating wealth. There are some words, Crouching, that get flagged. I find that I don't know, like, I don't know what you're saying, so I don't know, but there are words that get flagged, that just get comments pulled out because I think they're probably like the most common like removed thing, the most common thing. So I don't know what you're trying to say. So, but it does happen. So I don't know. Oh, is this it? No, this is the full thing. Okay. Camp evictions are the sharp end of Canada's predatory housing policies. Brutal police raids are the most visible violence of a housing market that creates scarcity, drives up prices for profits, and criminalizes homelessness. Yep. What I meant to say is that Ford profited off those C-19 stickers in places of business was disgusting. Yeah. I mean, Ford is a disgusting sociopath. Like, there's no other way to discuss him. Like, he, am I going to be able to pull this up? All of Ford's cuts first year. See if National Observer actually lets me in. So here's everything the Ford government cut in its first year in office. If this doesn't convince you that Doug Ford is a fucking sociopath, then absolutely nothing will. So, environment, canceled cap and trade, cut 700 green energy projects, ended electric and a hydrogen vehicle incentive program, shut down White Pines Wind Project, proposed cuts to protections species at risk, removed electric vehicle chargers from GO station parking lots, removed them. They were already there. He removed them. Slash 50% of flood management funds given to conservation authorities. Eliminated funding for 50 million tree program. Ended Drive Clean, a mandatory biannual emissions test program for vehicles and light-duty trucks more than 7 years old. Axed the Green Ontario Fund, which provided funds through cap and trade to help make properties more energy efficient. So I'm only in the environment section, and we know he's a sociopath. Like, he's a murderous, just brutal sociopath who is interested in the full-scale destruction of his own children, right? He is interested in destroying his own children. And we know that here already. Health. Canceled free prescription medication given to those under 25 through the pharmacare program. Canceled the opening of new overdose prevention sites. Cut the Liberals' promised $2.1 billion over 4 years for new mental health funding. Revoked current and future funding for the College of Midwives. Slashed the number of paramedic service providers from 59 to 10. Proposed ending OHIP's medical emergencies coverage for Ontarians traveling outside the country. Planned to cut $200 million from public health services, impacting 35 health units over the next 10 years. Scrapped funding for 3 supervised drug sites. Trimmed $1 million for funding from Leave the Pack Behind, an agency that helps young people quit smoking. Education. Rolled back sex ed curriculum. Removed $100 million budget for school repairs. Cancelled Ontario's first planned French language university. Removed $25 million from the Education Programs Fund. Removed free tuition for low-income students. Cut tuition rate fees by 10%. Scrapped over $30 million in funding for 3 satellite university campuses. Increased class sizes. Cancelled 3 summer curriculum writing centers. Scrapped the Ontario College of Trades. Legislative positions, privatization officer, chief scientist, investment officer, like justice, reduce legal aid by 30%. Meanwhile, and gotta remember, guys, he's doing all of this while doubling the police budget. Like, social services, cut $1 billion from social services across the board. Arts retroactively slashed $5 million from Ontario Arts Council. Canceled the Indigenous Culture Fund. Like, and the idea that all of this had to be done, because Ontario is going bankrupt and all that kind of shit, is fucking delusional. Like, that's fucking delusional bullshit. Research. Cut funding to Mars Discovery District. Eliminated funding for public policy think tanks, such as the University of Toronto's Mowat Centre. Cut funding to 2 artificial intelligence institutes. Canceled the Technology Accelerators Program. Eliminated funding for Gambling Research Exchange Ontario. Like, this guy's a fucking sociopath. Like, this guy's a fucking sociopath. And to think that he's anything other than a fucking sociopath is to live in a delusional dream world, or to be fine with the fact that he's a sociopath and agree. Like, Ford still does a plug for Timmy's on almost every one of his speeches nowadays. I wonder why. Did he buy Tim Hortons stock? They probably paid him, dude. I think they probably paid him. Yeah, clueless people still voting back. Well, and I'm done calling them clueless. Like, no, you don't get to be called clueless anymore. There's information. It's out there, right? You are in favor of a sociopath, and you know it. You're fine with that. Like, this is why I say fascism is popular, you guys. Like, they know. They're well aware. They're not clueless. They know. There was a pilot in Hamilton. I think it was in quite a few cities, actually. I think it was pretty well spread out. Let's just get down to the conclusion of this article. Good article, by the way. That really talks about what I talk about. The handful of new commodified or even moderately affordable units being added to Toronto are dwarfed by the net loss of affordable units as rents and housing costs continue to rise, spurring more evictions, displacement, and debt. With a collective commitment to housing as a life-sustaining infrastructure of care and against housing as investment, we can change the rules to de-weaponize the real estate game and the carceral state that accompanies it. Encampment residents and those who stand with them are the most visible edge of this struggle. Yeah, it didn't matter. It was canceled after a year, even though he explicitly promised it wouldn't be. I mean, yeah, why did anyone believe that this fucking lying sociopath was gonna actually keep his word? I just like this picture. This is a good picture. Communism is okily dokily. There's something I need to like make a shirt like this, eh? Get Ned Flanders there being like, communism is okily dokily. Wouldn't it be great if such a establishment actually existed? Wouldn't that be nice? I think that would be nice. I hope you guys are doing really well out there, man. These are tough times. These are tough times. Like, it does seem to me that the society is getting fed up. It does seem to me like all the polls are starting, like, and this is important. Like, the polls are starting to move more and more to the left, and that's starting to happen outside of the election season. That the election season is really when people make their minds up. And we've seen that again and again, that the polls are accurate in regards to how people view things right now, but people really start to pay attention in the election season. This is a big reason why people don't necessarily want an election, because they know that the election season is when they have to pay attention. And they know that it's like a task that they have to do. It's like a job that they have to do. And election season is when people who genuinely don't pay attention start to. And so the fact that things are moving to the left outside of the election season is a good sign. And I see the liberals sort of positioning themselves in anticipation that this left move is going to happen over the election season. And so a lot of shit is going to go down, I think, in this election. Crouching, wish I lived closer to you, John. I'm in Chatham, about 3 hours away. I would have helped you with the flyers. That's sweet of you to say, bud. That's sweet of you to say. We're all doing our best. I'm for a resource-based economy. Yeah, there's lots of people that I think are getting to that point. And lots of people beginning to see, this money thing. Is money helping us? People are really caught up in this idea that money is real, and it isn't. It's just not. It's just a manifestation of our imagination, and that's what's so disappointing about our society, and why I call it a fake society. We're not a real society, because a real society would just be let's just eliminate these pools of dead capital that are just sitting there helping nobody, doing nothing of importance. And give them to people who need help. Yeah, it would be nice to see the NDP make some big gains. Again, if only to scare the shit out of these liberals and conservatives, right? The NDP, I got big question marks about Jagmeet Singh. I got big question marks about that guy. And this election's going to answer a lot of those questions for me. Yeah, yet they keep reporting how great the GDP is while people are starving. Well, and what's so fucking annoying about the GDP is that the guy that invented the GDP, the guy that made the measure, said, just don't use this way. Like the way that we're currently using GDP as a form of measurement, he literally was like, yeah, this isn't useful for this. Like it's not to be meant to do this way. That he created GDP as like a technical thing for people to pay attention to off on the side. The idea that people are using it as like the primary litmus for whether or not your economy is doing well, what? Like he the guy that made GDP would literally be like, what? No, don't do that. And the primary reason is that like he himself acknowledged that there's many ways, there's many things that could happen in the society where GDP could decline and become zero, and the society would be fine, right? That GDP is just a measure of what it is. But it's not like the thing to pay attention to. Yeah, I'm worried about that too, Crouching. Honestly, deep down, I think Jagmeet is all talk, but I'm still voting for him. Yeah, I think that I vote for him too, just because he scares the shit out of the liberals and the conservatives, and that's it. Like, that's enough for me. Like, that's how low the bar is at this stage in the game, right? That the neoliberal capitalist system has failed so aggressively and so dramatically and in such massive ways that that the bar has gotten so low, right? That I'm not even like espousing like we need to 100% get behind policy or any of this kind of stuff. I'm literally just like, vote NDP to scare these guys. Like, that's it. And like, the true power lies in the streets. That's where the true power is. Like, it's not in the ballot box. It's in the street. And because it doesn't matter who is elected into power, if 100,000 people are standing outside their door, they're going to respond, right? Like, when the White House was surrounded, Nixon was passing liberal reforms. Like, the power is in the street. It's not in the ballot box. If the Green and Bloc voters would join up and vote NDP, they would surely win. The problem is that the guy that's at the head of the Bloc right now is actually quite popular. And it's very unlikely that Quebec will vote for a guy with a turban. Straight up. Like, it's very unlikely that Quebec will vote for a guy who's wearing a turban. Like, that shit still matters. That shit still matters. And if I'm a betting man, I think we end up with a liberal minority. I just don't think the populace is smart enough. I just don't think the populace is smart enough, and they're still very gullible. Like, they can still fall into the same sort of stupid patterns. Like, it's very difficult to break patterns, right? And the pattern of like passing the ball between the conservatives and the liberals, like, it's going to be very, very difficult pattern to break. And the pandemic has been something of a pattern breaker, right? It's been something of a pattern breaker, but is it enough? Like, and again, like, the populace doesn't really know what like the economy is. They don't really know what these things are. They don't know what like the deficit is. They don't know what any of that actually is. And so they can be deceived by very, very... Yeah, the headwear is more vital than the actual policy, apparently. Yeah, exactly. And there's just like... And people are very skittish. They can be... Like, when it comes down to it, they can be swayed with basic fear, right? That's what the, like, gotta vote liberal or else the conservatives get in. Like, that's an appeal to fear. And it works. And because the left, such that as it exists within the political system, is so unwilling to utilize fear as a motivating tactic, they end up losing, right? Like, but I feel like we should. Like, we should use fear as a motivating tactic. Like, fear of a climate change apocalypse is real. Like, the climate change apocalypse that's coming our way is real. And we could use that as a fear motivator. While the liberals and the conservatives, while the conservatives completely deny that it's happening, and the liberals, pretend like what they're doing is actually working, we could create a campaign of fear to actually be like, hey, your fucking town is going to burn down. Because it is. Like, we know it's going to burn down. Like, that's an inevitability. Like, these things are going to happen. Like, your towns are going to flood. Your towns are going to burn down. It is an inevitability. Stop pretending like it isn't. And the liberals and conservatives are not doing fucking anything about it. Yeah, that's a good time to close down. That's a good time to close down. All right, guys. You are all divine beings standing on divine energy. You could use some of it right now. Have a good weekend. Good luck. We're going to need it.